Please leave. It's too crowded in here, Jennifer said with a laugh. Her smile was smug and unsettling, the worst I had ever seen. I stood there, shocked, as Jennifer repeated herself. I didn't understand why I had to leave my own house. This is my house, you know. What are you talking about? I asked. I know this house is in Daniel's name, she replied. I was shocked by Jennifer's nerve. Even though I had explained everything when we got married, it seemed she hadn't listened at all. Fine, I'll leave, I said with a sigh. Watching Jennifer gleefully unpack her furniture into Daniel's home, I wished he were here, but he was away on a business trip for a month. I decided to wait until he returned to discuss the situation. Well then, take care, I said. With that, I left the house filled with memories. I knew where I was going next. I anticipated Daniel's reaction when he returned. My name is Karen, and I'm a 65-year-old housewife. I worked until I was 60 and now live comfortably thanks to my pension and the inheritance from my husband, who passed away 5 years ago. He came from a wealthy family and owned several properties. Despite his wealth, he enjoyed working and was frugal. During the years we raised our child, there were times I got frustrated with my husband for being so focused on work, but I always admired him for taking on challenges with a smile. It's been 5 years since he passed away in October, in a tragic accident that happened on our wedding anniversary. I can't forget seeing the crushed cake box at the accident scene. He left behind a significant inheritance, insurance money, and our beloved son Daniel. Daniel turned 40 this year and works at a big company. After his father's sudden death, Daniel went through a rough patch. He was cheated on and divorced by his then-wife, and he briefly sought counseling to cope. I worried he might quit his job, but then he met Jennifer, and things turned around quickly once they started dating. They got married last year, and since then he's been even more driven at work and seems to have fully recovered. Jennifer, my son's wife, is a single mother with 2 boys aged 2 and 5. Daniel, who adores kids, had grown close to them, and I found them incredibly cute. Daniel couldn't have children due to an illness in his childhood, so the idea of having grandchildren filled me with joy. I thought Jennifer was quite generous, although she occasionally said things that surprised me. Overall, I believe she had a good heart. Daniel and everyone else seemed to agree. It never occurred to me that things could turn out the way they did. After their marriage, Daniel and Jennifer moved into a property near our house. I had suggested they live in one of my husband's houses. We want to start in a home we'd chosen ourselves, Daniel insisted. He explained that Jennifer had a preference for cute things, and none of the available properties matched her tastes. When I first heard this, I was puzzled, but since they were newly married with children, I decided not to dwell on it, thinking they deserved to enjoy their preferred lifestyle. Daniel was often busy with work and traveled frequently. During his absences, Jennifer would bring the kids over for dinner. The grandchildren were well behaved, but Jennifer's behavior was quite different. She helped herself to food and often went through our closets without asking, even entering our bedroom to take my jewelry. This shocked me, and I felt the need to confront her about it. Jennifer suddenly burst into tears. I just wanted us to get along. Please don't hate me. Faced with Jennifer's tears, I found myself comforting her instead of addressing the issue. I chose not to tell Daniel about what happened, and since Jennifer didn't take anything else after that, I decided to keep the incident to myself. About 6 months into their marriage, Jennifer started sending her kids over to stay with us frequently. She would call abruptly the day before and hang up quickly, making it hard to say no. Reluctantly, I found myself taking care of the kids each time. Although they remained obedient, their table manners had noticeably deteriorated since we first met. They ate loudly and often spilled food outside their plates, despite being well-behaved before. I had to remind them repeatedly, but they would only listen temporarily before slipping back into their old habits during the next visit. This routine left me feeling frustrated. Jennifer appeared unconcerned and would drop off her children at our home and leave quickly. Initially, Jennifer would visit with the kids, but after a few times, she started sending them over alone. Jennifer, it's okay for the kids to come over, but I'd appreciate it if you could join them sometimes, I suggested. But I'm quite busy, Jennifer replied evasively. That night, Daniel called me unexpectedly. Hey Mom, could you try to be a bit more understanding with Jennifer? What do you mean? I asked, confused. I thought I had been quite kind to her, but Daniel seemed to have a different perspective. Jennifer feels pressured to visit often because she's afraid of being expected to help out like she had to in her previous marriage. She had a tough time with her ex-husband's family, so please go easy on her. Really? Okay, I understand. It seemed Jennifer had misunderstood my intentions. I responded to Daniel with mixed feelings, and the next day, Jennifer sent the kids over to our house again. As their first year of marriage passed, the children began spending half of each week with us. Meanwhile, Jennifer would only visit a few times a month, staying for about 10 minutes each time. I started feeling uneasy about Jennifer, who always seemed too busy to talk. When I asked the children about Jennifer's plans, they would look guilty and shake their heads. Initially, I tried asking a few times, but their reactions made me feel so guilty that I couldn't bring myself to pry further. Then one day, Jennifer unexpectedly came over with Daniel. We sat down for coffee and had a pleasant chat after a long while. That's when Daniel spoke up. "I have something to discuss," he said seriously. "The kids have really bonded with you, and I'm away on business trips often, so I can't spend much time with them. If you're okay with it, I'd like you to move in and help Jennifer out. What do you think?" "Move in? Well, what about Jennifer?" I was taken aback by the sudden suggestion of living together, nearly dropping my coffee cup in surprise. However, I kept my composure and turned to Jennifer. "Karen has always been a tremendous help, and I'd really appreciate her assistance," Jennifer chimed in. "Is that so? Well, I'll need some time to think about it," I replied. Daniel seemed pleased with my response. Knowing him, he must be concerned about my well-being too. I pondered over the proposal for a couple of days and eventually decided to accept. From there, we began clearing out unnecessary items and preparing rooms for Daniel's family and the children. With the kids' help, we finished cleaning up sooner than expected, although the effort left me with daily muscle pain. A stark reminder of my age. Despite the challenges, I successfully cleared out 2 rooms. As I busily cleaned, Jennifer didn't offer to help at all, which made me increasingly uneasy about living with her. Then came moving day. As the movers brought in boxes, Jennifer pulled me aside into the garden. With a puzzled expression, I turned to her, only to be met with a malicious smile. Then, unbelievably, she said something that left me stunned. "Please leave. It's too cramped in here," Jennifer laughed, her smile both smug and unsettling. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why was she asking me to leave when it was my house? I was bewildered. "This is my house, you know. What are you talking about?" I asked. "I know this house is in Daniel's name," she replied sharply. Jennifer's assertion left me feeling inwardly frustrated. Despite explaining everything when we got married, it seemed she hadn't paid attention at all. "All right then, I'll leave," I said with a sigh. I watched as furniture that reflected Jennifer's tastes was moved in, and she seemed overjoyed. It would have been better if Daniel had been there, but he was away on a business trip. He wouldn't be back for a month, so I decided to postpone any discussion until then. "Well then, take care," I said as I left the house filled with memories. I already knew where I was headed next. I eagerly anticipated Daniel's reaction upon his return. Without delay, I moved my belongings into my new home. The new home was a villa my husband and I had visited once, filled with memories, including where he proposed to me. While it didn't hold as many memories as our previous home, it held a special place in my heart, as we had planned to spend our second life here together. After finishing unpacking, I relaxed alone on the sofa. The place was very comfortable, thanks to the caretaker's diligent maintenance. I felt a pang of sadness for not seeing the children anymore, but I was prepared to sever ties depending on Daniel's response. A month passed quickly, and around the time Daniel's business trip ended, he called me. I picked up the phone, feeling a bit nervous. "Mom, where are you? There's no space for you here, and we were supposed to be living together. What's going on? Hasn't Jennifer said anything to you?" When I got back, Mom wasn't here, and Jennifer just cries without giving me any answers. "Well then, come to this address I'm about to give you," I replied. I gave Daniel the address and hung up. The next day, Daniel arrived at my new home with Jennifer and the children. When I opened the door, I saw Daniel looking a bit somber and Jennifer appearing pale. "Welcome. Is something wrong?" I asked, concerned. No, nothing," Jennifer replied, visibly tense, while the children looked around with curiosity, especially the 5-year-old who seemed particularly fascinated. I guided Daniel's family into the living room. As they took in the fully furnished space, Daniel seemed to realize that I had no intention of continuing our previous living arrangement. "Hey Mom, why did you suddenly decide not to live together?" Daniel asked, puzzled. "Well, Jennifer should have a good understanding of that, shouldn't she?" I replied. Daniel scratched his head with a slightly irritated expression before recounting what he had heard from Jennifer. "Jennifer mentioned that you didn't like her choice of furniture, right? But that was just for our room. Couldn't you have let it go? She also said she had to buy more furniture for the living room because you moved out." "Oh, so she added more furniture, did she?" I looked directly at Jennifer, who twitched nervously. Her lips curved slightly upwards, as if she believed Daniel wouldn't believe my side of the story without proof. "Jennifer, why lie?" I asked plainly. "I haven't lied about anything," Jennifer replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Daniel immediately stepped in to console her, seeming to view me as the source of the conflict. Meanwhile, the grandchildren hung their heads behind them, avoiding eye contact with Jennifer. I let out a frustrated sigh. "Jennifer, stop the fake crying. The children can see right through it." "That's awful, Daniel. I'm really not lying. please believe me, Jennifer pleaded, clinging to Daniel and burying her face against him. Despite her words, her voice lacked genuine emotion. I felt annoyed with Daniel for siding with Jennifer in this situation. Mom, Jennifer may have made mistakes, but leaving without discussing it isn't right. Can't we try to work things out? Daniel pleaded. Well, I do owe you an apology for leaving abruptly, but any reconciliation with Jennifer will have to wait until you hear this, I replied, tapping my mobile phone. Immediately a voice played out loud, causing Jennifer's face to turn pale. You recorded it? I accidentally hit the video button while trying to capture the kids playing. The recording continued without my realizing. The voice from my phone sounded unlike Jennifer's usual tone, and Daniel looked bewildered, shifting his gaze between my phone and Jennifer. Jennifer was the one who asked me to leave. I was just following her instructions, I clarified. Is this really you, Jennifer? It can't be, Daniel demanded, pushing away from Jennifer, who clung to him, and asked her directly. However, Jennifer remained silent, staring at the ground. Daniel's frustration grew as he raised his voice, demanding answers from Jennifer. It's not true. Are you taking Karen's side? Jennifer managed to protest weakly, but the recorded voice clearly called out the children's names, leaving no room for doubt. Despite Daniel's persistence and Jennifer's attempts to dodge the truth, the situation became wearisome. Finally, Jennifer slipped up in exasperation. I never wanted to live with someone else in the first place. What? You were the one who wanted Mom to live with us, Daniel said, clearly shocked by this revelation. Jennifer defiantly explained her reasoning. Exactly. I couldn't understand why Karen was living in a house under your name while we had to rent. I wanted a home of our own. It appeared Jennifer was worried about being judged for living in a rental property after marrying again. Daniel had leased a luxurious condominium in the area, which cost around $4,000 per month. Despite this, Jennifer seemed to look down on it simply because it was a rental. This attitude caused me a different kind of frustration. Jennifer glared defiantly at me, and now Karen is harassing me. This is the house I've always dreamed of. Why are you living here? Daniel looked perplexed by Jennifer's accusation. Unlike Daniel, I straightforwardly explained to Jennifer, who was clearly on edge. Why? Because this property originally belonged to my husband. That's a lie because this place is, Jennifer started, possibly thinking of the caretaker or something else she was mistaken about. I showed Jennifer a photo on my mobile phone. Upon seeing the person in the photo, Jennifer exclaimed, "Father?" My husband had passed away before Daniel remarried, so Jennifer had never met him. She had never referred to my husband as father. Therefore, the father Jennifer mentioned must be the children's paternal grandfather. The photo captured Jennifer's father-in-law and me shaking hands. It was taken as a memento when we moved in. Jennifer looked at me, her face turning pale. How do you know him? How? Because he's the caretaker here, of course, I replied calmly. Upon hearing this revelation, Jennifer sat down right where she stood. Daniel also appeared stunned, struggling to grasp the situation. Sensing an opportunity to clarify things further, I decided to continue. We had a conversation when we moved in. That's when I learned he's your ex-husband's father, and also the real reason behind your divorce. The real reason for the divorce? Daniel's voice echoed in surprise. Jennifer, no longer trying to pretend, became visibly flustered by my words. Karen, there must be some misunderstanding. I'm sorry, let's go home together. Mom, please tell me, Daniel interrupted Jennifer, his expression earnest as he looked at me for answers. It would have been less damaging for Jennifer if this had come to light later, but I had no intention of showing mercy. I instructed the grandchildren to go play in the garden. They glanced at Jennifer but obeyed my request and headed outside. Once the children were fully engaged in their play, I turned back to Jennifer. I heard from Jennifer that her divorce was due to her husband's infidelity, but in reality, it was Jennifer who had an affair. Daniel was visibly shocked, and Jennifer trembled, avoiding my gaze. I can't believe this. Karen, why would you lie about this? Daniel asked, clearly shaken by the revelations. Oh, I also have a copy of the notarized document here. I retrieved the document from a drawer and handed it to Daniel. Daniel's face went pale as he scanned through the document. What's all this? Compensation? Custody to be revisited once the child can choose? Meeting before remarrying? I was never told about any of this. That's right. The other family also claimed they weren't informed about the remarriage, I added. Jennifer stared down, her face drained of color. Daniel sighed heavily and turned to Jennifer, his expression now devoid of his earlier kindness. Remember when I got divorced because I was cheated on? What did you say then? That the one who cheats is entirely at fault, right? Unforgivable, right? Yeah, Jennifer muttered quietly. Daniel's voice grew heated in response to Jennifer's silence. So the story about divorcing to escape from your husband's infidelity and extreme control, putting the kids at risk, was also a lie. What's that about? Jennifer appeared unsure how to answer. Daniel's frustration intensified. And didn't you say I would never cheat? Daniel pressed on, his voice sharp with anger. I had to say that or you wouldn't have dated me, Jennifer finally replied, her voice tinged with desperation. Right, of course, Daniel retorted sharply, not letting Jennifer finish. Daniel was visibly agitated, his breathing heavy with emotion. Jennifer, on the other hand, began to sulk defiantly. I've heard you've been declining visits since you started dating Daniel and apparently leaving all the housework and childcare to his family. And now you're trying to blame me after remarrying. Why are you making unnecessary accusations? Jennifer shouted at me, her voice loud and defensive. Daniel gave Jennifer a cold, distant look. Her unguarded outburst had shattered the image she had maintained. It's over between us. Let's get a divorce, Daniel stated firmly. No, I don't want a divorce, Jennifer pleaded, clinging to Daniel, who tried to shake her off impatiently. Despite his attempts, Jennifer persisted. Just as Daniel's frustration seemed ready to boil over, an unexpected voice intervened. Mom, you're saying the same things you told Dad. You've got a new boyfriend now, so stop bothering Daniel. Michael, Jennifer's eldest son, spoke with a surprising maturity for his young age. His sudden return from the garden surprised not just me, but everyone present. What? Why are you saying unnecessary things, Michael? Jennifer snapped, clearly caught off guard by her son's unexpected words. What do you mean by a new boyfriend? Daniel asked, squatting down to look at Michael, clearly perplexed. Michael spoke again, maintaining his composure. Whenever you're away, Mom tells me to go to Grandma's house, and then her boyfriend comes to pick me up. Michael, don't lie, Jennifer interjected quickly. Daniel hugged Michael tightly and turned a stern gaze towards Jennifer, who looked taken aback by his genuine anger. We'll talk about this later, including the boyfriend and the compensation, with him present. It's not like that. I love you. It was just a brief fling with that guy, Jennifer pleaded desperately. That guy, huh? Daniel remarked coldly, his disappointment evident. Jennifer looked crestfallen at Daniel's remark. With a resolute expression, Daniel stood up, shielding Michael, and stared coldly at Jennifer. Without hesitation, he forcefully escorted her out of the house. Wait, Daniel. Open the door. The next time we talk will be with a lawyer present. I'll arrange for the kids to see their father. I've already called my parents. They're on their way to pick them up. What do my parents have to do with this? Jennifer continued knocking on the door for a while, but soon the noise ceased. Shortly after, I heard voices arguing and then the doorbell rang. Jennifer's parents stood there, looking apologetic. After entrusting the grandchildren to me, they took Jennifer back with them. Later, the grandchildren were safely introduced to Jennifer's ex-husband's family. It turned out that Jennifer had changed her phone number and moved without informing anyone since she started dating Daniel, making it impossible to reach her. Her ex-husband and his parents were overcome with emotion and embraced the children as soon as they saw them. Although Daniel had already legally adopted the children, transferring custody back to Jennifer's ex-husband took some time due to the legal process. It seems Jennifer's life has taken a sharp turn after the consequences of her actions. Her strict reprimand from her parents and her current work situation at a family-run hotel indicate a stark change in her circumstances. With high alimony payments to both Daniel and her ex-husband, she reportedly has little respite from her duties. I can't stand it anymore. I want to quit, she frequently complains, but her relatives are keeping a tight rein on her. Meanwhile, Daniel, having experienced his second divorce, has sworn off marriage and thrown himself into his work. Despite the lingering shock, I recently learned he's reconnected with a childhood friend who lives nearby and is 10 years his junior. They'd occasionally go out for meals together, and this friend even visited me recently to say hello. It turns out she's harbored feelings for Daniel since they were kids and never pursued other relationships because of her enduring affection for him. As a parent, it warms my heart to see that the young girl who once dreamed of marrying Daniel still holds those feelings into adulthood. Daniel himself seems somewhat pleased by this newfound connection. Living in a house where I was proposed to holds immense significance for me. Despite the alterations Jennifer made, the house has been completely renovated and now serves as a rental property. Living here alone, I never feel lonely. It's as if my husband's presence is still nearby. I cherish each day, anticipating the second phase of my life where I'll gather stories to share with him when we're reunited.
When my husband found out that I couldn't inherit my father's money, he started yelling. What? You can't get any of his money? If that's the case, I don't want to be with you anymore. I want a divorce right now. After that, I got back at my husband and my sister, who married each other right away. My name is Chloe. I'm a 32-year-old office worker, and I've been married to my husband George for 2 years. I met George through a relative, and we got married. My family had some money, But since we were the only daughters, my relatives worried about who would take over. They introduced me to George, saying it would be fine for him to join our family. My husband, George, didn't officially join our family, but he started living with me at my parents' home. My mother passed away a few years ago, so it was just my father, my husband, and me living in my parents' house. My husband was very kind and treated my father well, so he seemed like a really good person. However, a relative who introduced him to me told me something worrying right before our marriage. I know it's strange for me to say this since I was the one who introduced George to you, but he's kind of obsessed with money, so be careful. I had already married him and was about to have a wedding ceremony, so it was too late to do anything about it. But I hadn't noticed any signs that he was obsessed with money, so I went ahead with the marriage. Even after getting married, I kept a close eye on my husband because of what I had heard. But I didn't see any signs of money obsession from him. However, he seemed to be interested in my father's money and would casually ask about it when he was having a drink with my father. My father was open about it, so I didn't worry too much. Another thing my husband was curious about was my younger sister. She is 5 years younger than me, and unlike me, who is calm, she is lively and outgoing with a vibrant social life filled with men. She doesn't look like me, and my husband was surprised when he first saw her. Your sister has a completely different vibe from you, Chloe, doesn't she? Seeing my husband fascinated by my beautiful sister, with her striking looks contrasting my plain and boring appearance, gave me mixed feelings. However, the relative who introduced me to George was worried that if I, being modest and plain-looking, couldn't get married, there would be no one to inherit after my family. I thought there was no need to worry because I had a beautiful sister. But later, I understood why that relative was worried. My father was very lenient with my sister, letting her go to college after high school and even to a vocational school after she graduated from college. My sister didn't have a particular goal. She just didn't want to work. On the other hand, my mother was strict with her, insisting she should get a job right after college. But my father overruled my mother and let her go to vocational school. After graduating from vocational school, my sister got a job at a company owned by a friend of my father's. But she quit after just 6 months. I was shocked by her excuse for quitting. I couldn't show my full potential at that company. My mother and I were puzzled by how my sister spoke as if she had already mastered her job after only 6 months. But my father believed her and quickly arranged for her to work at a different company. After a while at the new job, our mother fell ill and had to be hospitalized. While our mother was in the hospital, my sister visited every day, often skipping work. Eventually, she quit that job too, claiming she needed to take care of our mother. However, her idea of caregiving mostly involved being in the same room as our mother, chatting or spending most of her time staring at her smartphone in the waiting room. After our mother passed away, I took on the responsibility of managing her affairs, including picking up her laundry from the hospital and ensuring she had fresh clothes. Meanwhile, my sister wasn't much help. Our mother may have enjoyed having her around to chat with, but as her health declined over a month, she couldn't even hold conversations anymore. Within 2 weeks of her condition worsening, she passed away. Both my father and sister were too shocked to arrange the funeral, so I took charge of that. Thankfully, our relatives pitched in, and we gave our mother a proper farewell. Following our mother's death, my sister moved out of our parents' house and started working part-time. However, her earnings weren't enough to cover her rent and utilities, so our father began footing those bills. It seemed she was spending her money on fun rather than saving. Whenever her part-time income fell short, she turned to our father for financial support. Our mother used to be strict with her, so even when she started working, our father didn't give her an allowance. Now, though, he provides her with whatever she needs. I realized that both my father and sister were content with their financial arrangement, so I didn't see any issue. Even after I got married and moved in with my husband at my parents' place, my father continued giving my sister an allowance. At that time, I didn't notice, but it turns out my sister was also asking my husband for money, and he was giving it to her willingly. He couldn't refuse her and told her to keep it a secret from me, saying, "Don't tell Chloe about this, okay? She might get jealous." My sister lived off this allowance from our father and the money from my husband, doing part-time work when she felt like it. However, this lifestyle couldn't last because our father fell ill and had to be hospitalized. While I juggled visits to the hospital between work and caring for our father, my sister never showed up. Instead, she started calling me and demanding money. Since I've been getting money from Dad every month, I need you to continue that. The rent and utility bills are all being paid from Dad's account anyway, she said angrily, revealing this information for the first time. I was furious with my sister. Instead of worrying about our hospitalized father, she was only concerned about her own finances. Despite wanting to hang up, I knew my sister was also in a tough spot, so I asked her how much money our father was giving her each month. How much does Dad give you each month? You really need to find a job soon and start supporting yourself. In a grumpy tone, my sister replied, "Stop nagging me. I was getting $1,000 every month, not including rent." I was taken aback by my sister proudly stating the amount. It made me worry that with such a substantial monthly allowance, she might lose any motivation to work seriously. I assumed our father would recover soon after his hospitalization, so I didn't see it as a major issue to keep supporting my sister financially. However, our father's condition suddenly took a turn for the worse, and I urgently reached out to our relatives. The doctor also informed me of his critical condition, leaving me deeply shocked. I desperately needed support from my husband during this tough time, but he claimed to be busy with work and rarely visited the hospital. When he did come, he'd ask insensitive questions like, "Your father must have a huge inheritance, right? Since you and your sister are the only heirs, you'll split it evenly, won't you?" I was speechless in response to my husband's focus solely on the inheritance. It dawned on me that this was what my relatives meant when they warned me about his obsession with money. I felt a deep sense of disappointment. Even when I called my sister to tell her about our father's critical condition, she only cared about her own financial needs. "Forget about that. Just make sure you keep sending me money every month. I can't survive without it." The call ended abruptly. I was furious at my sister's selfish words, but I also felt uneasy hearing a faint male voice in the background that I recognized all too well. It gave me a sinking feeling. About a month later, our father passed away, but neither my sister nor my husband was present in his final moments. Having gone through my mother's funeral, I understood the weight of organizing such an event. To add to the burden, neither my husband nor my sister offered any help. My sister didn't even attend the funeral. My husband did show up, but as soon as it ended, he disappeared, citing work. Even the relative who introduced us noticed his absence and questioned me about it. "What's going on with your husband? It's odd for him to be missing like this, isn't it?" All I could manage was a bitter smile in response. "He seems tied up with work. He had to head back home," I explained to the relative, who sighed in response. Yet it was I who wanted to sigh just as much. After the whirlwind of my father's funeral settled, my husband approached me with a smirk on his face. "Finally done, huh? So how much did you inherit? Even if it's split between the two of you, it's gotta be a tidy sum, right?" As warned by my relative before our marriage, it seemed my husband's mind was preoccupied with thoughts of my father's inheritance. Disheartened by his attitude, I replied casually, "My sister gets $100 million and I get nothing." I hadn't even spoken to my lawyer yet, and with the funeral just behind me, I hadn't sorted out my own emotions. Seeing my husband so eagerly discussing the inheritance made me feel like laughing out loud in disbelief. Without missing a beat, my husband erupted. "What? You can't inherit any of his assets? In that case, I have no reason to stay with you. Let's get a divorce right away." Feeling similarly, I shot back, "Fine, let's do it. You married me for my father's inheritance in the first place, didn't you? I'll divorce you." As I said this, I handed him the divorce papers I had already prepared. He seemed a bit taken aback as I brought them out, almost as if he expected it, but he signed them nonetheless. Just before leaving, he uttered these words as my now ex-husband. "I'll divorce you since you have no inheritance and marry your sister Emily to get the $100 million. Despite that, I promptly filed the divorce papers, severing ties with my deceitful husband. The next day, it seemed he had already submitted a marriage certificate with my sister. A few days later, I received a call from him. Still believing his delusion, he shouted, "When are we starting the inheritance process? Get Emily her $100 million as soon as possible." I had been expecting his call. I didn't want to be the one reaching out to him, as he had left our home on his own. I responded in a composed, business-like tone. "Let's discuss it at my place this Sunday. I'll be prepared for the proceedings." My ex-husband, believing he was about to cash in on an inheritance, hung up the phone with joy. Little did he know, I eagerly anticipated his reaction when he learned the truth. When the weekend arrived, both he and my sister came to my parents' house, surprised to find a lawyer waiting there. Nevertheless, my ex-husband seemed confident. "Of course you need a lawyer when there's an inheritance involved," he remarked. Then, with a puzzled expression, the lawyer addressed my ex-husband. "Before we discuss the inheritance, there's the matter of property division that your ex-wife has brought against you." The lawyer proceeded to show my ex-husband a series of photos, images capturing him leaving my sister's house on specific dates clearly marked. Addressing him firmly, the lawyer continued, "These photos serve as evidence of your affair prior to the finalization of the divorce. You will need to comply with the terms of the property division settlement." I had overheard my ex-husband discussing the inheritance on the phone with my sister, prompting me to instruct my lawyer to investigate his infidelity. Perhaps thinking I was preoccupied with my father's funeral, my ex-husband and sister had been meeting almost daily at her house, providing ample evidence for my case. Both were taken aback when the conversation shifted from inheritance to their affair. But my ex-husband quickly composed himself and countered, "Property division is nothing compared to the $100 million inheritance. I'll settle it immediately." As the lawyer presented the documents, my ex-husband, still speaking with arrogance, signed them without hesitation. Once confirmed, I calmly informed him, "Enjoy your life with my sister, who gets nothing from inheritance. Since you've signed, I'll ensure the property division is enforced." Upon hearing she inherited nothing, my sister exclaimed, "What? Why do I get nothing? I'm supposed to receive $100 million. My ex-husband also turned red and shouted, "There's no way, there's no inheritance. I won't let you take it all." The lawyer intervened calmly, addressing their anger. "Emily is actually the biological child of Chloe's late mother from a previous relationship and was never formally adopted by Chloe's late father. Therefore, Emily, you cannot inherit your father's estate." I also explained to my bewildered sister, "When our parents remarried, Emily, you were about 1 year old. You probably don't remember, but I recall it vividly. I was 6 years old at the time and was thrilled to suddenly have a sister. Never did I imagine that this same sister would end up taking my husband. Our parents, both burdened with young children from previous marriages, aimed to strike a balance between us when they remarried and began parenting together. My mother loved me as her own daughter, and my father cherished you, Emily. Perhaps he spoiled you more because you weren't his biological child, being overly cautious. Despite both of them remarrying with children, my mother, suspected by some relatives of being interested in my father's assets, chose not to officially adopt you. Those relatives who consistently recommended suitors for me did so knowing I was the sole heir to our father's wealth. If our parents had had a child together, things might have been even more complex. But fortunately or unfortunately, they didn't. Perhaps they avoided having more children to prevent future inheritance disputes. Now understanding that my father had been financially supporting my sister even into her adulthood because he couldn't leave her his inheritance, I realized the extent of their relationship. Like my sister, I also hadn't been formally adopted by my mother, but it never affected how we saw each other. It seemed our parents hadn't disclosed their remarriage to my sister, and today was the first time she learned the truth. As for my ex-husband, his face turned from red to pale as the situation sunk in. Not only was he not inheriting what he expected from my sister, but he was also facing a property division claim he had already signed off on. With a pale face, he asked me, was it a lie that my sister was getting $100 million and I was getting nothing? Suppressing a laugh, I replied, "Of course, it was a lie. It was my way of getting back at you for cheating on me. Besides, my father's estate was nowhere near $100 million, even though he was wealthy." Suddenly, my usually quiet sister erupted, "I've been shopping so much, thinking I'd inherit Dad's money. What about the support Dad was giving me until now? Will you take care of that, sis? You're married with a dependable husband now, so you don't need it anymore, right? Make George support you." She glanced at my pale ex-husband, but he shook his head. "I can't do that. I also spent a lot, counting on the inheritance, and now with the property division, I'm stretched thin." With that, my ex-husband unexpectedly dropped to his knees before me, begging, "Chloe, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Please, can we reconcile?" The lawyer, who had been packing up to leave, chuckled at the sight. Where had the arrogance he showed upon arrival gone? George, pleading on his knees like that, seemed utterly absurd. After our discussion, my ex-husband and sister left, and they divorced soon after. It seemed my ex-husband lost interest in my sister once he realized she wouldn't inherit anything. He mentioned property division, but since he had no assets, I arranged for him to pay from his monthly salary as advised by my lawyer, ensuring I received what was due. My sister, who lost our father's financial support, struggled to make ends meet with part-time work, but eventually faced overwhelming debts and declared bankruptcy. She moved out of her apartment, and I lost track of her whereabouts. My father's excessive support had made my sister dependent, hindering her ability to work seriously. Subsequently, my relatives began suggesting potential marriage partners for me as I lived alone in my parents' house. But I declined. I wanted to find a partner on my own terms, determined not to repeat the mistake of marrying someone like my ex-husband again. I'm Harley. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a bold and self-reliant woman. Let me tell you about the crazy journey of my relationship with my husband Dominic. Get ready, because it's going to be a wild ride. Dominic and I had our ups and downs, like most couples. Even though I loved him a lot, there was one big problem. His mom, Charlotte. She was always critical of me. No matter what I did, she never seemed happy. Whenever we had family gatherings, Charlotte would make mean comments about my cooking. She acted like she was a fancy chef and I couldn't cook at all. She complained about the taste, how things looked, and say I wasn't as good as her. It felt like she was trying to prove that I wasn't good enough for her son. But it wasn't just about my cooking. Charlotte had a talent for making me feel small in other ways too. Once, at a dinner party, I proudly told everyone about a big promotion I got at work, hoping for a pat on the back. Instead, she just brushed it off like it was no big deal, saying it wasn't as good as what her friends' kids had achieved. It made me feel invisible, like she didn't care about my success. And our wedding? It should have been a happy day, but Charlotte made it her mission to criticize everything, from where we had it to what colors we used. Nothing was good enough for her. She'd whisper her disapproval to anyone who'd listen, ruining what should have been the best day of my life. You'd think my husband, Dominic, would stand up for me, right? Well, not quite. Bless him, he had this weird blind spot when it came to his mom. He couldn't see how she treated me, made me feel small, and acted like I didn't matter. It hurt a lot. And his dad, Caleb, was the only one who seemed to get it and call her out. But I wish Dominic would be the one to stand up for me. After all, I was his wife, his partner, and I deserved his support no matter what. But every time, I felt let down. Dominic stayed quiet, letting his mom's words hurt me over and over again. It was like being cut by tiny knives, again and again. I wanted his love, but I also wanted him to stick up for me. It wasn't just about defending me from Charlotte's mean comments. It was about fighting for our relationship and showing me I was important. I hoped he'd see through his mom's tricks and put us first. But it seemed like he was stuck in the family drama, unable to break free. As time went on, I started to feel more and more frustrated. I felt like he didn't care about me or what I needed. It was like we were stuck in a bad cycle that we couldn't get out of. The beginning of the end came when Dominic said he had to go on yet another business trip, this time to Tampa for a week. Another trip? Seriously, Dominic? It's a really important meeting that couldn't wait, babe, he said. But you just got back from another one. Can't someone else do it? And why Tampa all of a sudden? I asked, surprised. He had only just come back from a different business trip, so this sudden one made me wonder. I tried to tell him how I felt, hoping he'd understand, but his answers didn't help much. But I let it go. I'll bake, even though I'm not sure about this. You know, sometimes things just come up unexpectedly in business, I said reluctantly. Yeah, it's just business, okay. Even though I had my doubts, I didn't push it too much, and off he went on this business trip. The first 3 days of Dominic's trip went by, and my suspicions got even stronger. I decided to FaceTime him, like I usually did when he was away, but he kept choosing audio calls instead. Hey, can we do a video chat tonight? Sorry, the hotel Wi-Fi isn't great, so audio calls are better for now. But everything's fine, don't worry. Wi-Fi problems. It seemed too convenient, didn't it? Babe, don't worry about it, Dominic reassured me. But I couldn't help but worry. Sometimes I'd hear a woman's voice in the background, and it made my doubts grow stronger, making me even more uneasy. I felt like Dominic was hiding something, like there was more to this trip than he was letting on. The trust between us was starting to crack. leaving me with a sense of uncertainty that hung over our relationship. Despite my doubts, I stayed quiet and accepted his excuses for those 3 days. It was hard to believe. 3 whole days had gone by, and I still hadn't seen Dominic. Not only did he avoid video calls, but our audio calls kept getting shorter and shorter. I had to find out what was really going on. On the 4th day, I tried to FaceTime Dominic again, hoping to get some answers. But when the call connected, instead of seeing Dominic, it was Charlotte who answered. She was sitting in a beach chair with sunglasses on and a tan. I was shocked. "Charlotte, what are you doing there? Where's Dominic?" She smirked, looking pleased with herself. "Oh, Harley dear, you didn't think he was on a business trip, did you? Honestly, I can't say he needed to go to Tampa to keep this from you, but I suppose that just shows how pushy you can be." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dominic had lied to me, and his mother was there, enjoying herself while I was left in the dark. Anger started to bubble up inside me as I realized they had been deceiving me. "So you're telling me you both planned this secret vacation without me?" "Well, yes," she admitted. "Why?" I demanded. "Because I wanted to visit my hometown, and I wanted to do it with my son. Is that so wrong?" Charlotte replied. "Of course not. But why keep it a secret? Why exclude me?" I pressed. "Because this trip is just for me and my son," she explained. "But I'm his wife. I should have been included. This could have been a chance for us to work out whatever issues you have with me, and I could really use a vacation too," I argued. "Well, tough luck. You didn't get one." "Sorry, not sorry," Charlotte retorted. "I'm going to set aside your childish behavior for a moment to say this. Even if you wanted this special trip without me, it would have been okay. I'm an adult. You can tell me if I'm not invited to something. I can handle it. But here's the thing. We kept it a secret from you because we simply didn't want you to know. It's as simple as that. We didn't care if you wanted to come or if you would have been okay with us going alone. We just didn't want you to know. But your constant calls were annoying, so I decided to just tell you," Charlotte explained. "Are you serious, Charlotte? What's gotten into you? Has all that sun fried your brain?" I shot back. "How dare you insult me like that? You're taking this too far. You're acting like such a drama queen," she retorted. "I'm not being dramatic. I have every right to be upset, especially after years of putting up with your nonsense," I responded. Charlotte shrugged, pretending to be innocent. "Oh, Harley dear, sometimes it's better not to know everything your husband does. It was just a little secret getaway, just for us, something special. You wouldn't understand the bond we have." A rush of emotions flooded through me, betrayal, anger, and sadness. It was obvious they had planned this together, leaving me out and feeling completely deceived. As I realized the extent of their deceit, I couldn't help but wonder what else they had lied about. How long had these secret trips been happening? Why were they so insistent on keeping me in the dark, and what else were they hiding from me? The trust I had in Dominic was falling apart, and I snapped out of my thoughts when I heard his voice getting closer. "Mom, why did you answer the phone? What's going on?" Dominic's voice sounded tense. "It's time Holly knew the truth." "It's been 4 days," his mother replied firmly. Dominic snatched the phone from his mother, his face going pale as he realized the mess he was in. He stared at the screen, knowing he was caught in a lie. "Why did you lie about the business trip, Dominic? And the Wi-Fi was fine the past few days, wasn't it?" I demanded. "I didn't want you to be mad at me," he admitted. "Well, of course I'm mad. I thought you were avoiding me. Is it strange that you want to spend time with your mom?" "Yeah, a bit. But Dominic, you haven't been standing up for me, and I've been feeling distant from you already. If you wanted mom-son time, you could have just said so. Even if I was upset about not being invited, it would have been better than feeling like this," I argued. Anger surged through me as Dominic tried to explain himself. It was clear he hadn't thought about how his actions would affect me. "Dominic, I wouldn't have been upset if you had just been honest with me. It's not about the trip itself. It's about you keeping it a secret. That's what bothers me. I mean, I thought you were cheating on me, for crying out loud." "What? No way," Dominic exclaimed. "Yeah, well, when I heard women's voices in the background of your calls, I started to wonder," I said bitterly. "I have a special bond with my mom. Sometimes we just need to get away," Dominic tried to explain. "In Tampa of all places, you both hate Tampa. And what about Gertrude? Weren't we supposed to visit her?" I questioned. "So this secret was just between you two?" What about your dad? Did he know? I pressed. I can't talk right now. I hope this trip was worth it, because when you come back, I'm not sure you'll still have a wife, I said firmly. Holly, please wait, Dominic pleaded. But I couldn't wait. I ended the call and ignored all of Dominic's attempts to reach me. I paced back and forth in my room, trying to make sense of it all. Why would he hide something so simple from me? One thing about me, when you lie about small things, I start to wonder what big things you're hiding. It was strange to think of Dominic spending time with his mom on this secret trip. Honestly, I would have preferred if he was cheating on me. I was frustrated with my distant and secretive husband and his difficult mother. I knew what I had to do. I needed to talk to someone who would understand. I picked up my phone and called my father-in-law, hoping he could offer some clarity and support. Hey, it's Holly. I need to talk to you about something important. I poured my heart out, sharing every detail of the deception that had tainted my marriage. Anger, sadness, and betrayal swirled inside me as I recounted Dominic's lies. From his fake business trip to his desperate attempts to keep me in the dark. His betrayal cut deep. But what hurt even more was Charlotte's involvement. I described how she seemed to enjoy keeping me ignorant, relishing the power she had over me. The weight of their deceit felt suffocating, and as I spoke, I could sense Caleb's shock and hurt in his responses. Caleb's voice turned serious, matching the gravity of my words. What? I had no idea about any of this. I'm so sorry you had to find out like this. As soon as I found out, I called you. Charlotte told me she was going to Tampa to visit her mother and repair their relationship. I believed her. Well, Dominic just confessed that they weren't planning to visit Gertrude at all. And Gertrude has no clue about any visit, I revealed. Caleb's shock and hurt were evident over the phone. It was becoming apparent that Charlotte had been weaving a web of lies, manipulating everyone involved. I can't believe Charlotte would do something like this. It's one thing to have disagreements, but to deceive her own family. It's unforgivable, Caleb said, his voice heavy with disappointment. They both need to learn a lesson, I agreed. That's a brilliant idea. I was seething with anger, ready to do anything to teach Dominic and Charlotte a lesson. After our call ended with words of encouragement and excitement for what was to come, I waited eagerly to hear back from Caleb about his mother-in-law's reaction. A couple of hours passed and Caleb delivered the good news. As Caleb described his conversation with Gertrude, the seriousness of the situation became even clearer. His voice shook with a mixture of anger and sadness. I told her everything, Harley. She was furious, devastated even. She couldn't believe her own daughter would deceive everyone like this, Caleb explained. She deserves to know the truth, Caleb. Charlotte has been treating us horribly for too long, I replied. Gertrude has decided to take action, Harley. She's planning to teach Charlotte a lesson she won't forget. She's fed up with Charlotte's behavior and wants to show her what real rudeness looks like. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the issue between Charlotte and Gertrude? Well, Harley, I'm sure you'll find it ironic, but Charlotte always claimed her mother was very rude and cruel to her. They've had a rocky relationship since Charlotte ran away at 16, being in and out of touch for years. It's very toxic, but after talking to Gertrude for the past hour, I'm starting to think Charlotte was the problem all along. It's crazy. I've been married to Shaw for all these years, and you and Dom have only been married for 3. Yet you've managed to uncover more family secrets in this short time. I should have been more curious. I should have stood up more. How could you have known, Caleb? Don't be hard on yourself, please. You were just being a good husband, trusting what your wife told you. And you stood up more than your son. That means something. Thanks, Harley, for everything. I'm glad I could help, even though it's unfortunate it came to this, I remarked. Yeah, I guess so, but I'm looking forward to Gertrude showing them how tough she can be, Caleb responded. The next day arrived and the fallout from our revelations began. Dominic, unable to grasp the seriousness of the situation, called me in frustration, his words filled with irritation. Holly, what did you do? What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me. Gertrude is here, and nobody else knows we're in town except you. She said she came because she heard we were here. I'm glad she knows the truth. Everyone deserves to know, after all you're sneaking around. How could you do this, Harley? Dominic's voice was filled with frustration. In the background, I heard some commotion, likely from 2 female voices. One sounded much older, which I assumed was Gertrude unleashing her anger. Dominic, maybe it's time Charlotte faces the consequences of her actions. She needs to understand what it feels like to be deceived, I replied firmly. Suddenly, I heard Charlotte's voice. You ungrateful little rat. How dare you expose us like this? As I listened, I couldn't help but chuckle softly, though there was bitterness in my laughter. Before I could respond, I heard another voice, stern and authoritative. Don't you dare speak to that young lady like that. I've had enough of your insolence. You've been telling everyone how rude and nasty I was to you, huh? When all I did was care for you and help you out of trouble. You were such a problem child, lying about everything and being nasty to everyone. And I see that lifestyle has followed you into adulthood. We haven't seen or talked to each other since you left, and this is how you want to act. Do you think I'm rude and nasty? Just wait, I'll show you rude and nasty. I heard things breaking like a glass or a vase, and it made me a bit fearful as the shouting continued. I couldn't imagine how scared Dominic must have been, but I realized that this was the consequence of his actions. He was an adult, responsible for his choices. I was done making excuses for them. They were getting what they deserved, and I was glad to hear it unfold. For the next few days, Dominic kept asking for my forgiveness because his grandmother was driving him crazy. Each time he called, I reminded him that this was his fault. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Gertrude continued arguing back and forth. I was surprised they didn't get kicked out of the hotel they were staying in. As their 7-day trip came to an end, Dominic revealed something even more shocking. Holly, please, you need to talk to Gertrude. I tried talking to Dad, but he's still upset with my mom and me, Dominic pleaded. Slow down, what's going on? You two were supposed to be coming back, right? I asked, trying to keep up. I thought you learned your lesson, I added. Well, Gertrude doesn't think so. She's planning to board the plane with us, Dominic explained. What? She wants to follow us home and make sure my mom starts acting like a respectable adult and not some crazed teenager, he continued. Wow, that's unexpected. Maybe next time you'll stand up for what's right and not go along with your mother's schemes. See you when you get here, I replied. Harley, I regret everything. Haven't you punished us enough? Please talk to Gertrude and tell her she doesn't have to come with us. Dominic pleaded desperately. I don't think so, sweetie. Who am I to argue with that woman? She's terrifying. I responded to Dominic's plea. How do you think we feel? He asked. Honestly, Dom, I don't care how you feel. You've been lying to me for God knows how long, and you never stood up for me when your mom treated me poorly. You're getting your karma. Don't be mad at me now. Have a safe flight. Well, as safe a flight as you came with these two ladies being together, I retorted firmly. As I hung up the phone, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. Finally, the tables had turned and I had stood up against the toxicity that had plagued our lives for too long. Gertrude, the unexpected ally, had unleashed her own brand of justice, and I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of excitement. Now I await their return, expecting stories from Gertrude, as I'm sure she continued to make their lives difficult on that flight. Revenge never tasted so sweet. Hey everyone, I'm Sandra and I'm 28 years old. I live in Houston, Texas, but I'm getting ready to move soon. I was in a really bad marriage for a year and a half, but I got out of it with the help of my dad and the police. It was my fault though. I got myself into that mess. If I had been smarter, I might have said no to getting married. I've always been a shy and quiet girl. I didn't really enjoy hanging out with people. Most of the time, I just stay on my computer, lost in the online world. Sometimes I'd go to pubs for a drink, but I'd get uncomfortable when strangers tried to befriend me. I'd always turn them down because they were strangers, and I worried they might try to harm me. When I was 6, my mom passed away because she had a heart problem that wasn't treated. After that, my dad took care of me. He's been a sailor since he was 23, going on long trips exploring the sea. I really missed him when he was away. He used to send letters to my mom and try calling her whenever he could. But when my mom died, he came back to be with me. He found me crying a lot next to her coffin. He picked me up and tried to comfort me. Hey, my little girl, did you miss me? You've grown so much. Papa. Hey there, Dove. It's okay now. Daddy's here. Everything will be okay. I promise. All right. Even though he said that, I kept crying in his arms, holding onto his uniform tightly. My dad gently patted my back and hummed my favorite lullaby until I fell asleep. Later that night, I saw him sitting alone on the couch, drinking. He looked really sad. He kept saying things to himself, then buried his face in a cushion and started crying. It was the second time I'd ever seen him cry. The first was when I fell off a slide and got hurt. Maybe he blamed himself for everything that happened. He took a break from work for 2 months before leaving again. Before he left me with my grandma, who took care of me while he was away. Be good to Granny, okay? She's here for you. You'll be a good girl and help her out. And you? I'll be back soon, my dove. I asked Granny to teach you how to bake your favorite treats and cook your favorite meals. Will you learn from her? Yes, Dad, I will. Next time I come back, I'd love to taste your dishes, but for now, I have to go. My car's waiting. You take care of yourself, honey. He left. I knew he'd be back in about 6 months. He often sent me gifts and little souvenirs from the places he visited. Most of the time, I stayed indoors and helped Grandma with her chores. I didn't really like playing with other kids. As I got older, I relied more and more on the comfort of my room. Eventually, my dad sent me back to our old house. I really disliked going to college and interacting with people. The internet gave me confidence that the outside world couldn't. It's exciting and comforting to talk to people I might never meet in person. I can share my thoughts and feelings without worrying about being judged for being shy. Through the screen, I found friends who truly get me. I've met people from all over the world with different backgrounds and experiences. Learning about their lives is fascinating, and it shows how alike we all are despite our differences. The internet connects us across continents, bringing us together in ways we couldn't have imagined before. There, I met a guy named Ricky. He said he was a streamer. We started chatting, then moved on to video calls. I often wore a Batman mask to hide my identity, and he covered his face with a scarf and wore a beanie. Hi Sandra, it's great to finally see you. Hello Rick, nice to meet you, well virtually. Same here. So how are you feeling today? How many people have you chatted with? I'm okay, just a little nervous to be honest. That's totally normal. But don't worry, I'm not scary. I'm just as awkward as you. This is our first real chat. So Rick, tell me more about yourself. How did you get into this online platform? Well, I really enjoy meeting new people and seeing things from different angles. I tend to spend a lot of time at home, so this online community seemed like a great way to connect with others. How about you? I'm pretty much your typical introvert, so I struggle a bit with socializing in person. Online platforms give me a sense of ease and let me be more open. I get it. Virtual connections can be surprisingly meaningful. I'm glad we found each other. We talked for a while, discovering shared interests and swapping stories about our lives. As the conversation flowed, I started feeling more relaxed. It's funny, I never expected to feel so comfortable talking to someone online. Thanks for making it easy. The feeling's mutual, Sandra. You're great to talk to, and I'm happy we connected. If you ever want to chat again, just give me a shout. I'm usually online playing Mario. Oh, forgot to ask, do you play games? Actually, no, I mostly blog and browse Reddit. There's so much interesting stuff there. I feel like I learn more from other people's stories than from real-life examples. Totally. Sometimes real life can be a drag. It's cool to meet new people. Like, look at me. I trust my online friends more than the ones I know in person. The best part about online stuff is you don't have to feel pressure to keep in touch. You can take it or leave it. It's up to you. As Ricky and I kept talking, we formed a real bond despite being strangers online. Our shared understanding and open-mindedness made us feel like friends beyond the screen. I'm not sure where this connection will take me, but one thing is for sure, my online experiences have shaped who I am. As I go through life, I'll always carry the lessons I've learned from my digital world with me. My dad, on the other hand, is very cautious. If he knew I was making friends online, he'd be really mad. Last time he talked to me, he sat me down and lectured me during dinner. How are your studies, Dove? I've graduated. Well, you wouldn't know. You weren't there. Oh, Sandra, that's not good. I know I was really busy, and I'm sorry for missing out. I even emailed you saying I'd be there for your birthday. Tomorrow's my pumpkin's birthday. Stop calling me names. I'm not a little kid anymore. To me, you'll always be my little dove. Anyway, what are your plans for the future? Are you thinking of working? I'm not sure yet. What do you mean you're not sure? What are your friends up to these days? I don't have any friends. What? Listen, I didn't send you to your mom's place so you could just stay home and not interact with the world. There's so much out there, so many people you'll miss out on if you don't get out there, honey. That's the problem, Dad. I don't really know how, but I'll try. I mean, I do have friends, but they're all online. Online? Sandra, that's not the best way to make friends. Oh, come on. All right, fine. How about we go out today? Maybe do a little shopping, just you and me. I haven't been out much lately, but I don't know if I can. Of course you can, Sandra. You have to try. This isn't a healthy way to live. I understand ever since Marissa passed away, you've. Why are you bringing Mom into this? What are you trying to say? I'm not trying to say anything, honey. I'm just saying that we need to find ways to move forward from past hurts. We both love your mom, but we need to learn to move on. I don't know why, but I got really angry. I slammed the table and stood up. I didn't even want to finish my food. I took my plates to the sink. Sandra, please don't give your father that attitude. I was just trying to help you. Why can't you see that? You don't know everything about me, so don't try to. I was so angry. I went online to find Rick. At first, Ricky seemed like a nice person, understanding and willing to listen. It felt good to have someone to talk to, especially about the frustrations I've been dealing with. As an introvert, I always found comfort at home, with my computer screen as my companion. While others went out into the world, I preferred the safety of my virtual haven, where I could be myself without the pressure of face-to-face interactions. Lately, my dad had been pushing me more and more, especially since I told him how much time I spent online. I knew this would happen, he just didn't understand. He thought staying in my room all the time would hold me back from growing and learning. He wanted me to step out of my comfort zone, and that scared me. I vented my frustrations to Ricky, hoping he'd understand what I was going through. Hey Sandra, do you want to meet up? We're both introverts, so we can go somewhere quiet, with not too many people. I know a place like that. I'm not sure. It feels really sudden. I need some time to think. I just wanted to let you know what's been going on. Okay, no problem. I can wait. Whenever you're ready, you're always welcome to come by. Here's my address. Why are you being so nice to me? I'm just a stranger, aren't I? Because I like you. Like me, really? Yeah, I know it might sound strange, but I really want to get to know you. And if you ever feel the same, you know where to find me. It was a big step for me, stepping out into the real world. My heart was racing with excitement and nerves as I stood outside Rick's house, finally ready to meet the person I've been talking to online for the past month. Surprisingly, he lived really close to me, just a 20-minute drive or so. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage before knocking on the weathered wooden door. It creaked open, and there was Rick with a warm smile that instantly calmed my nerves. He was quite charming. His house might not have been fancy at first glance, but there was something cozy about it. It felt authentic and welcoming. As I stepped inside, I couldn't help but notice the small details that spoke volumes about Ricky's character. The bookshelves filled with well-loved classics, the stack of board games, his computer setup, and so on. Welcome, welcome to my humble abode. Your presence graces my domain, fair master. Some gaming talk I might not fully grasp, but thank you. This is a really cozy place. Do you live alone? Nope, fair princess. I live with my mom. She stays downstairs, while I have the top floor all to myself. Come, I'll give you a tour. We spent the day talking, laughing, and getting to know each other even better. Meeting in person added a new dimension to our connection, and I grew to appreciate the person behind the screen even more. Rick was just as kind and genuine as I had hoped, and his quirky sense of humor only made me like him more. As the sun set, Rick suggested we take a walk outside, and I agreed eagerly. As we strolled through the nearby park, our conversation flowed effortlessly, and my initial nervousness melted away. Being with him in person felt like a natural extension of our online chats, but with a deeper level of closeness. Wait, so you didn't celebrate your birthday? No, I didn't really feel like it, especially after the argument with my dad. I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm sure he'll come around. He's your dad after all. I made a mistake. I trusted him too much. His words seemed sweet like honey, but I didn't realize I was just another one of his games. When we started dating, he became overly possessive and jealous. He always wanted me to talk to him on the phone or online. If I tried to chat with anyone else, he'd get angry. He kept saying he loved me and wanted to protect me. I believed him. Why did I believe him? As our relationship got stronger, it became clear that his mom didn't approve of me. It was tough to know she felt that way about me, someone she hadn't even met. Her disapproval weighed on me, and I couldn't understand why she couldn't see the love we had. Rick's close relationship with his mom was obvious, and he often called himself a mama's boy. While I respected their bond, it also made me feel distant. I knew family was important to him, but I felt like an outsider dealing with his mom's disapproval. The strangest thing was that his mother kind of wanted us to get married. She knew I didn't have anyone else in the world since my dad wasn't around. Maybe she thought I'd be useful to her. Not every parent is perfect. Just look at your dad. At least my mom cares about me. Please, Rick, when you talk like that, it really hurts. But you know I'm the one who loves you, right? Your dad doesn't love you like I do. So stop complaining about my life and try to compromise. We ended up having a secret wedding. Ricky didn't want me to invite my dad, saying he'd never approve. He managed to make me believe that my dad didn't care about me. I went along with it and got married to him quietly. I knew it was risky, but I was weak. You can call me weak, but my environment shaped me and I blamed myself for not standing up for myself. After a few months of being married, I began to see a side of his mother I never expected, one filled with cruelty and malice. She seemed to enjoy making me suffer, deliberately making me doubt myself and leaving me feeling shattered and defeated. It started with small comments and passive-aggressive remarks, slowly wearing down my confidence. I tried to ignore it, hoping her disapproval would go away over time. But instead, it only got worse, turning into a constant stream of emotional abuse. What is this? Is this supposed to be food? You think my son can eat this mess? Go and make it again, you idiot. Why is this place so dirty? Are you blind? What a sloppy girl. Get up, lazy girl. Take out the trash now. Honestly, have your parents taught you nothing? Her words were like daggers, leaving wounds that cut deep into my soul. She questioned every move I made, belittled my accomplishments, and manipulated situations to make me feel unworthy of Ricky's love. Meanwhile, my husband stayed in his room, lost in his music or video games. It felt like I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, unable to escape her grip. Inside, I was filled with rage. I blamed myself for being so weak and stupid. How could I let myself be treated like this? I missed my dad terribly. I regretted our fights and pushing him away. I yelled at him to leave me alone, and with a heavy heart, he did a few days after my birthday. Now, I felt stuck and believed I deserved every bit of it. One day, feeling unwell and feverish, I curled up on the sofa, hoping a nap would help. Just as I was about to doze off, I was jolted awake by a sudden splash of cold water. It was Ally with a disgusted look on her face. What the hell are you doing sleeping on our couch? Did you get our groceries like I told you to? I didn't respond. I see. You want your old mother-in-law to do all the dirty work while you just lay around, you devil. She slapped me and started calling for Ricky. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. I'm not doing anything for you or your useless son. I've had enough of your. Go bother someone else. I can't and I won't take it anymore. I didn't receive an ounce of respect from this family, and I didn't care anymore. As I was about to leave, something blunt hit the back of my head, and I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a dimly lit room. My head throbbed with pain, and I struggled to stand up. Where was I? I could hear faint sounds approaching, growing louder as they neared. Crawling towards the noise, I found a metal door with a small window. It opened, revealing Ricky's grinning face. Is my wife scared of the dark? What is this, Ricky? Please let me out. This isn't funny. Shut up. This is what you get for disrespecting my mother. Now I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. Please, Ricky, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I promise I won't complain. Please let me out, I beg you. Not so fast, Buttercup. If you behave, I might consider letting you out. For now, this will be your little hideout. It's not like you enjoy going out anyway. And who do you have? Your mom is gone. Your dad doesn't care about you. You're just a forgotten soul. My house gave you a chance to start over, but you blew it. I'll make it right. I didn't mean to upset you, Ricky. Please let me out. I hate being in the dark. Daddy's girl, huh? Why don't you call out to him? Maybe he'll magically appear and rescue his princess. He closed the window and left. As I sat in the cold, dark basement, fear and anger consumed me. How did things get to this point? All I did was stand up for myself against my mother-in-law's unfair treatment, and now I was paying the price. As I reached into my pockets, I felt my broken and shattered phone. I lost all hope. But then, I noticed a faint blinking light on the screen. I still had a chance to call my dad. With trembling hands and tears streaming down my face, I dialed his number. My voice shook as I told him what had happened, desperately hoping he could somehow rescue me from this nightmare. 2 days later, when I was barely hanging on and despair threatened to overwhelm me, I heard a car pull up outside the house. My heart raced as I strained to hear footsteps coming down the stairs. When the door swung open and I saw my father standing tall and resolute, a wave of relief and disbelief washed over me. I couldn't believe he had dropped everything to come save me. He had brought some cops with him. Rick and Allie were arrested on the spot. They tried to lie, but it was futile. "You have no idea what you'll face in court, you psychopaths. What have you done to my little girl?" "We are truly sorry. We never meant any harm. I was planning to let her go today, I swear," Rick pleaded. "And who are you to decide my daughter's fate? You're nothing but a pathetic scumbag from the gutter. All right, Sandra, let's go." As my dad led me out of that dark basement, I felt a newfound sense of strength and determination. The ordeal had been incredibly tough, but it showed me that I could overcome anything with my dad's unwavering support. From that moment on, I promised myself to stand up for myself and never let anyone silence me again. I hope Ricky and his mom rot in jail. I'm planning to move to New Orleans with my dad. Texas doesn't feel safe anymore, and I'll make sure to never trust online strangers again. Lesson learned. Hey, isn't today our honeymoon, when we're supposed to go on a trip together? Why did you rip up my passport just as we were getting ready to go? I couldn't believe what my husband had done. He ripped my passport without asking, looking really pleased with himself. It made me so mad. I never wanted to go on this trip with you. I was always going to go with my mom instead. Before we got married, I felt some tension, but I didn't realize how messed up things were between my husband and his mom. Nobody in my friend group ever talked about their mother-in-law taking over their honeymoon. I was shocked and mad about this crazy situation, but mostly, I felt super weirded out. I started to question if marrying him was a big mistake. As he pulled out scissors and started cutting up my passport, I saw my mother-in-law grinning like crazy and knew I had to escape from there fast. It was totally unexpected, but I had just the right proof to take them both down. My name's Sarah. I'm 29 and been working for 7 years. Recently, my boyfriend of 4 years popped the question I've been waiting for. Now, I'm knee-deep in planning our wedding and honeymoon. I met my husband after I started working. I've always been more on the quiet side, and although I had a boyfriend in college, things just didn't work out. After that, I didn't really date anyone seriously for a while. So when I started working, it was a big surprise to find myself getting married before many of my colleagues. I think I was even more shocked than anyone else. My husband was a senior at the company when I first joined, and he was always there to help me when I struggled with new tasks. Even though the only guy I dated before him was a classmate, there was something different about someone who was 5 years older. I found him reliable and trustworthy. When he asked me out on our first date, I was ecstatic. I still hold dear the dolphin figurine we bought at the aquarium during that date. When he mentioned wanting to date with marriage in mind, I felt like I was on cloud 9. We went on many dates, and he proposed to me at that same aquarium where we had our first date. Could I really be this happy? That night, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep, and I still remember that feeling vividly. With my mind still filled with happiness, we quickly decided to visit his parents' home the next week. But during the visit, I started feeling unsure about our marriage. My father-in-law was nice, but my mother-in-law didn't seem to like me much. She even said, "You could have married someone more impressive than this ordinary girl." Hearing that made me doubt our future together and feel really anxious. But I figured everyone gets nervous before their wedding, right? So I pretended everything was okay and continued planning for the wedding. Then one day, while talking about our life after marriage, both my husband and his mom just assumed I quit my job. Even though I used to think quitting work after getting married was nice, I didn't see it as an option now. Looking back, I think my worries about marriage stopped me from considering leaving my job, where I felt safe. Even though my mother-in-law kept suggesting I quit, I decided to keep working at the same company as my husband, ignoring her. During our wedding planning, we didn't see eye to eye on when to officially register our marriage. He wanted to do it sooner, but we decided to go with his choice and did it shortly after. The process was pretty ordinary, but knowing we were officially married made me really happy. We talked about having a small, cozy wedding. But it seems he mentioned this to his mom. She called the next day. "You're planning a small wedding for Edward. Please don't make decisions without considering everyone's opinion. The wedding should be big and fancy. I'll make sure it's what Edward wants. And please keep your guest list short, just your parents and close friends. Your friends wouldn't add much excitement to the wedding anyway." I was overwhelmed with all the opinions flying around about the venue and guest list. It was frustrating that my soon-to-be mother-in-law thought she could control everything. But I didn't want to argue with her. Even though I had a lot to say, I kept quiet, thinking maybe this was just how weddings went. I ended up inviting only my parents and close friends, like she wanted. But her interference didn't stop there. She had something to say about everything: the schedule, entertainment, decorations, and food. If we followed all her suggestions, we'd blow our budget. At first, Edward's family agreed to split the wedding costs with us. But then that changed. Suddenly, it was all about the bride's family footing the bill, and we were way over budget. I had to cover all the extra expenses she wanted. So the wedding turned into this flashy event, completely different from the simple ceremony I had envisioned. I tried to make some changes secretly to save money, but she found out and scolded me, saying it looked cheap because I didn't listen to her. After the wedding, I hoped for some distance from my mother-in-law, but then my husband dropped a bombshell. I was tired of her meddling in the wedding plans, and despite knowing I wanted space from her, he insisted we move in with her. Our new place, which we'd already arranged, was suddenly canceled without my knowledge. All our stuff was redirected to my husband's family home. I was speechless, shocked that everything was decided without asking me. I handled all the wedding planning by myself. Even when I warned Edward about going over budget if we followed all of his mom's requests, he ignored me. My anxiety, which was already high, skyrocketed. We had planned to go on a honeymoon abroad after the wedding. It was a dream destination for me, and the thought of it felt unreal. But my growing discomfort with Edward's strange behavior and the idea of living with my mother-in-law when we got back put a damper on my excitement. Just like with the wedding planning, Edward wasn't very helpful with organizing our honeymoon. It was odd that he took charge of booking flights and hotels. I assumed he picked a romantic place for our honeymoon, and I was thrilled. Even though I ended up paying for everything, I was just happy he was pitching in, given all the excitement before the wedding. But I didn't realize this was a sign of things to come. Finally, the wedding was over, and amidst the chaos, our honeymoon day arrived. Despite some lingering doubts about the wedding and moving in with his mom, I was determined to enjoy the trip with Edward. But as I woke up in the middle of the night to get ready for our flight, Edward dropped a bombshell like it was no big deal. "Sarah, I'm going with my mom instead." As I was checking our luggage, I couldn't believe what Edward had just said. "What? What do you mean? This is our honeymoon, not just any trip. Why would your mom be coming? And we only booked for two for the flights and hotel." I was shocked, trying to make sense of it all when Edward dropped another bombshell. "I never said I was going on this trip with you, did I? Don't be ridiculous. I'm going with my mom. A trip with her is more important than our honeymoon. It's a thank you trip for all she's done for me. You stay here and clean the house from top to bottom." With that, Edward started tearing up my passport. I couldn't believe it, unable to speak, just watching as he destroyed it. Right then, my fully dressed mother-in-law barged into the room without even knocking. "Edward, are you ready?" Seeing her, Edward's face lit up. "Yeah, we're all set. Finally, we can go on this trip without any interruptions." They both chuckled, leaving me feeling disgusted. It hit me then. I was about to marry a nightmare. I'd been wondering how to get along with my mother-in-law, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I realized I'd made a huge mistake from the very beginning. "I see now what kind of people you both are," I couldn't hold back. But they just laughed it off as if my words were meaningless. They left together, leaving me feeling betrayed. I had been happy thinking Edward was helping with the honeymoon, but it was just a setup for him to go with his mother. He'd been planning it all along, booking everything under her name and leaving me to foot the bill. The betrayal stung, but my anger outweighed my sadness. The wedding and honeymoon I had always dreamed of were supposed to be unforgettable moments with the love of my life. But they were ruined by my mother-in-law and husband. It felt surreal. At first, I couldn't believe it was happening. But soon, I realized I needed to take action fast. I had to get a divorce. Interestingly, I had something that could help me. I had started recording to capture memories of the most important events in my life, my wedding and honeymoon. Since the wedding preparations, I had been recording various moments on audio. What began as a way to cherish memories slowly turned into documenting my mother-in-law's hurtful actions and harassment. Sometimes I thought about stopping because I figured I'd never listen to these recordings again. But it's ironic how valuable they turned out to be. Just days after moving in, I found myself repacking my things. It didn't take long since I hadn't unpacked much. I couldn't help but wonder if my husband and his mother were already at the airport. The thought made me furious, so I tried to push it aside. Even though I'd only been there briefly, I wanted to erase any trace of myself from that house. So I cleaned thoroughly everywhere I'd been. While tidying the living room, I stumbled upon something shocking. Evidence that my husband was stealing money from his company. In his role overseeing sales, he was reporting lower earnings to the company and keeping the extra cash for himself. And it seemed his mother was involved too. She had detailed notes of the actual sales, the money he pocketed, and even listed all the luxury items he bought her with the stolen money. It was a lot. I couldn't believe they'd left such evidence out in the open. Finding out about my husband's wrongdoing left me horrified. I realized the seriousness of the situation. For a moment, I thought about trying to smooth things over since I also worked at the company. But then I thought, why should I help someone who ditched me for a honeymoon with his mother? So, armed with evidence of the embezzlement, I went to the company. Even though they were supposed to be on their honeymoon, my colleagues were shocked to see me in the office. As everyone bombarded me with questions about why I was at work instead of on my honeymoon, I decided I had nothing to hide. I explained that my husband and mother-in-law had gone on the honeymoon instead, that my passport was destroyed, and that I had paid for the entire trip. My colleagues, bosses, and superiors were shocked and furious on my behalf. I thanked them for their concern and headed to the executive area of the company. What my colleagues didn't know was that one of the top executives at the company is my uncle. I never mentioned this to anyone, not even my husband or mother-in-law. I didn't want people to think I got the job because of family connections, so I applied and secured the position based on my own merit. Since my uncle isn't involved in human resources, I asked him not to reveal our relationship before the orientation. Though surprised, he respected my decision and assured me that we would maintain a professional relationship at work. As a child, my uncle treated me like his own, showering me with love and indulging my wishes. We even went on trips together when I was younger. Despite my parents scolding me for asking him to buy me things, he adored me. Since joining the company, our paths rarely crossed except for a brief exchange during orientation. When I visited his office, my uncle's warm smile quickly faded as he sensed something was wrong. "Why are you here? Weren't you supposed to be on your honeymoon?" Seeing his familiar face, I couldn't hold back my tears. Through sobs, I told him everything that had happened. He was visibly furious, a side of him I had never seen before. I explained my husband's embezzlement and handed over the evidence. My uncle promised to hold a board meeting immediately to address the situation. After promising to address the situation, my uncle asked about my plans for the day. When I mentioned heading home, he suggested we grab some food together before he dropped me off. Despite the unbelievable betrayal I had experienced, I felt genuinely grateful for the warm-hearted people in my life who cared for me. A week later, when my husband and mother-in-law returned from what was supposed to be our honeymoon, I received an immediate call. My husband was furious that I hadn't picked them up from the airport or cleaned the house as instructed. He demanded to know where I was. With the support of my uncle and parents, I had already hired a top-notch divorce lawyer, and the process was underway. Without giving my husband a chance to speak, I said firmly, "You two are loud and annoying. I don't want to hear your voices anymore. Why would I pick up someone I'm divorcing? And why would I follow your orders to clean?" He was momentarily stunned but quickly resumed his ranting. "Do you think it's okay to speak to me like that? I did you a favor by marrying you. If I divorce you, you'll never find someone else. My mom's furious too. If you come back now and cook for us, I might forgive you. We're tired of foreign food. Make us some traditional meals." His words were shocking. After his scheme with the passport and going on a trip with his mother, I saw his true colors. It dawned on me that I had never truly known him. I had been reflecting on this realization for the past few days. I've already consulted a lawyer about our divorce. Please discuss any related matters with them. Divorce? What are you talking about? We're not getting a divorce. I heard his mother in the background, shouting for him to hand her the phone and calling me names. Well, do as you please. By the way, I informed the company about your embezzlement. I think I'll be calling you in soon. Maybe you should get a lawyer too. Bye. I sensed his panic on the other end, but it wasn't my problem anymore. He kept calling, so I just blocked his number. My uncle knew our honeymoon dates, so right after our call, the company summoned my husband. With the evidence I provided, they verified the information and confirmed the discrepancies in the payments. It turned out the amount my husband embezzled was huge. In front of the company's executives, my husband desperately tried to defend himself. He made up a story claiming I was the real embezzler and he had tried to stop me. At that point, my uncle couldn't hold back and shouted, "My niece would never do such a thing. We've confirmed that you and your mother committed the embezzlement. You're lucky we haven't involved the police yet." Realizing his scheme had unraveled and that I had connections in senior management, my husband looked defeated. That day, I went to the company to return the wedding gifts to my colleagues. Despite our marriage ending so soon after the wedding, they all refused to take them back, saying they were given with heartfelt blessings. Surrounded by their warmth, my husband approached me, looking desperate. "Why didn't you tell me about your family connection? I'm sorry, truly. Can we start over? Can you ask your uncle to let me stay in the company and make the embezzlement charges disappear?" Disgusted, I replied. "Do you even hear yourself? Are you serious? Divorce is the only way forward now. Reflect on your actions and face the consequences." After I pushed him away, my colleagues intervened and called security, who removed him from the premises. He was immediately fired. As for the embezzlement, the company is pursuing damages from him. Upon learning about the situation, my mother-in-law attempted to contact my family repeatedly. However, after consulting my sensible father-in-law, the call ceased. I had always wondered why my father-in-law had agreed to our honeymoon, but when he came to apologize later, admitting his mistake, it became clear. He had believed my mother-in-law was going on a domestic trip with her friends. He was looking forward to a peaceful week without her constant demands and nagging about shopping and dining out, hoping for a brief respite. When I returned home after learning about the ridiculous actions of my husband and mother-in-law, my father-in-law agreed that I should go back to my parents' home and helped me pack. Emotions were running high, and without much discussion, I left for my family home. I knew my father-in-law, being genuine, kind, and rational, would have stopped everything if he had known. He was the only reasonable person I could trust in that house. Although I was the victim, it was incredibly embarrassing to think my honeymoon had been hijacked by my mother-in-law. I even considered resigning from my job. My parents advised me to take a break from work for a while. However, my uncle suggested that working might help distract me, and he discussed it with the CEO. They arranged for me to be transferred to a branch office. The divorce process with my husband went surprisingly smoothly, thanks to an excellent lawyer. However, I later found out my father-in-law was involved. When we were planning our wedding and discussing expenses, it turned out my husband had almost no savings. My in-laws were just an average working-class family. With my mother-in-law's spending habits, they had little savings, as my father-in-law mentioned with a wry smile. The alimony I received considering our short marriage was surprisingly substantial. Shockingly, my father-in-law sold the family home to cover it. Their home wasn't in a city center, but in a close-knit community. When we got married, my mother-in-law invited the neighbors. They witnessed me returning to the family home on the day I was supposed to be leaving for our honeymoon, luggage in hand. With the neighborhood's penchant for gossip, rumors spread like wildfire. Over time, these rumors became exaggerated to the point where living in that area became unbearable. Initially, my mother-in-law, always concerned about appearances, approved of our marriage because both my husband and I worked for prestigious companies. Having her son and daughter-in-law working for a major company was a status symbol for her. However, with rumors swirling due to her actions, she likely couldn't bear to stay in that house. Additionally, my father-in-law probably felt responsible for covering the damages from my husband's embezzlement. While I harbor nothing but disdain for both my husband and mother-in-law, I genuinely feel sorry for my father-in-law. After being fired and ordered to pay damages, my husband apparently suffered a mental breakdown. Unable to work, he's been moping around in a small apartment he moved to. Seeing her son so downcast, my mother-in-law also became reclusive, as my father-in-law told me. In fact, my father-in-law, fed up with my mother-in-law, was considering divorce as he didn't want to spend his later years with her. He asked if I could introduce him to the lawyer I had used. I immediately contacted my uncle, who got in touch with the lawyer. It might take some time, but I hope my father-in-law can live the life he wishes. Thanks to the intervention of the company's CEO and my uncle, I was transferred to a branch office where I'm surrounded by supportive colleagues and superiors. I'm eternally grateful to my uncle. The only regret I have is missing out on the country we plan to visit for our honeymoon. Once things settled down, I hope to take a relaxed trip abroad. The noise of Alex's voice cut through the clinking of dishes like a sharp knife. Alara, bring me some tea now. I paused, my hand in soapy water. Wait, I'm doing the dishes. What? His voice was full of disbelief and impatience. Stop that and bring me the tea quickly. Can't you follow simple orders? But, I started, but he cut me off. What a useless wife you are. Make me some sweet coffee, please. It was Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, speaking from the living room. She was eating a slice of cake she'd taken from the fridge, her eyes glinting with spite. I sighed, looking at the pile of dishes. There are so many. Leave them for later. Just do what we say, useless wife. Alex's words hit like a whip, each one stinging. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother feeling trapped in a life that felt more like a prison than a home. I got married at 23, hoping for love and companionship. Instead, I found myself stuck with Alex and his demanding mother. Our 4-year-old son was my only source of joy in a bleak world. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision I had to accept under the pretense of taking care of Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law passed away. At first, I felt sorry for her, thinking she was grieving, but soon I realized I was just a pawn in her cruel game of domestic control. No matter how much I cooked, cleaned, or worked, it was never enough. My efforts were always met with scorn. My meals were either left untouched or harshly criticized. The stir-fry is so half-hearted, Mrs. Whitmore would sneer. Cook it properly from scratch. I'm busy and can only make simple things, I'd say, trying to sound calm. That's why I hate backtalk from a daughter-in-law, she'd snap. Cook from scratch. Why don't you cook then? You're a good cook, right? I dared to ask once, immediately regretting it. Why would I do housework when you're here? Her response was cold and dismissive. Are you out of your mind? Their cruelty got worse over time. They stopped talking to me altogether, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, once just unappreciated, now felt completely invisible. 5 years passed in this suffocating atmosphere. Alex and I turned 35 and 33, respectively. Our son grew up, but the heavy atmosphere in the house didn't change. My mother-in-law, now 63, seemed to enjoy my unhappiness. One evening, as I walked home from work, I felt the heavy realization sink in. My life seemed meaningless. To them, I was like a shadow, unnoticed and ignored. The only person who seemed to see me was my son. The idea of losing even that little bit of recognition was too much to bear. When I got home, I started cooking right away, trying to push away the sadness. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, hoping to make our dinner feel normal. Bring me the mayo, Alex suddenly commanded, breaking his long silence. Sure, here you are, I replied, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages weren't thankful or conversational, just another command. It was too much, the final straw. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. The evening got worse when Mrs. Whitmore said, "Clean the toilet." What? Right now? I couldn't believe it. Yes, right now, she insisted, her voice full of bitterness. I couldn't hold back my frustration. Don't say such things while we're eating. It's disgusting, just like your heart. She hissed, and our argument quickly escalated, with Alex joining in, demanding. I apologized to his mother, but stood my ground for the first time in years. The conflict reached its peak, and I made a decision. I needed to get out of this toxic situation, for my son's sake as well as my own. I went to my room determined. I downloaded divorce papers, filled them out, and handed them to Alex. He was shocked, but I felt nothing but determination. I'm filing these, I said firmly. As I faced my husband's surprised expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to take control of my life. In the days after I declared my intention to divorce, there were a lot of angry looks and hurtful words, but in the middle of it all, I felt a strange sense of freedom. One evening, as I served dinner, Mrs. Whitmore looked at the meal with disgust. "You call this food? Even a child cooks better." I held back my frustration, focusing on my son's smile. "Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight." Alex jumped in, sarcastic. "Oh, now suddenly you're the perfect mother, huh? What a joke." I could feel anger rising, but I stayed calm. "I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son." Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. "Don't act like you're better than us. You're just a nuisance in this house." The tension at the table was thick. Alex's insults kept coming. "So, Alara, have you even thought about how you'll manage after the divorce? You can barely handle running a household, let alone your own life." I looked him in the eye. "I've been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son." His smirk faded slightly, a hint of unease crossing his face. Mrs. Whitmore quickly stepped in. "Don't be ridiculous. You rely on us more than we rely on you." The conversation shifted to money, a topic they usually avoided. "You know, without my paycheck, this household would struggle." I said, more to myself than to them. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. "We'll manage. We don't need your charity." But Alex's silence said it all. He knew the truth. Without my income, they would be in trouble. In the following days, their behavior became more unpredictable. Mrs. Whitmore would switch between trying to persuade me to stay and hurling insults when I resisted. Alex, meanwhile, seemed lost, his confident demeanor fading as the reality of his financial reliance on me sank in. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between them that sent shivers down my spine. "Leaving her is not an option," Alex whispered angrily. "We rely on her money." Mrs. Whitmore's response was chillingly calculated. "Don't fret, I have a plan. We'll make her life so miserable she won't even think about leaving." Hearing their true intentions shocked me. They didn't care about me or our son. It was all about control and money. That night, lying in bed, a plan began to form. If they wanted a fight, they would get one, but not with arguments. I would hit them where it hurt most, their pride and their wallets. The next morning, I set my plan in motion. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman. "I want a divorce, and I want to ensure they don't get more than they deserve," I told her. She nodded firmly. "We'll make sure of that. You've been the main provider, right? We'll use that." With each passing day, my determination only grew stronger. I started keeping records of everything, the insults, the financial tricks, even the smallest annoyances. It was time to make them face the music. They needed to see the consequences of their actions. As I gathered evidence, I felt a sense of strength. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life. The shadows of disrespect were fading away, and in their place, a new beginning was emerging. As the divorce process started, the tension at home grew worse. But with each passing day, my fear faded, replaced by determination. One evening, Mrs. Whitmore tried a different approach. "Alara dear, why don't we forget all this unpleasantness? You know we're family," she said, but her words were dripping with insincerity. I held her gaze steady. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me." Alex, who had been silent, scoffed. "Oh, now you're the victim. You're not as innocent as you act." I felt anger rising, but I stayed calm. "I'm not pretending anything, Alex. I'm just not willing to be your punching bag anymore." The conversation shifted to money, as it often did. "You think you can just take our son and go? How will you support him?" Alex challenged. I smiled confidently. "I've been supporting this family for years. I'll manage." Mrs. Whitmore's sneer twisted into her face. "You're nothing without us. You'll come begging to return." But their words didn't affect me anymore. I knew my value and the truth. The next day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the plan clearly. "We'll expose their financial dependence on you. It'll be crucial in the custody battle and dividing assets." I nodded, feeling validated. The law was backing me, and I was ready to stand up for myself. At home, the tension reached its peak. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to undermine me became more desperate. "You think you're clever," she spat one evening, "but you're just abandoning your family." I looked her straight in the eye. "No, I'm finally standing up for myself." Alex joined in, his voice full of anger. "You'll regret this. You can't survive without me. But I wasn't afraid of his threats anymore. As days passed, I prepared for the court battle. I gathered financial documents, recorded their hurtful words, and collected evidence of their neglect. One afternoon, as I sorted through my papers, my son came to me. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" His voice was small and uncertain. I pulled him close, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place and starting a new happy life. Just you and me." His arms tightened around me, and in that moment, I knew I was doing the right thing. I was fighting for my son's future, not just for myself. The day of the court hearing approached, bringing a sense of impending freedom. I was ready to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore, to put an end to their control and abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it through. The day of the court hearing arrived, a day I had been dreading yet eagerly awaiting. Sitting across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in the courtroom, I felt a surreal mix of emotions. This was the moment of change. The proceedings began formally. Alex's lawyer painted him as a devoted husband and father, unfairly accused. Mrs. Whitmore portrayed herself as a grieving mother-in-law, mistreated by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. But their act was transparent, their lies obvious. When it was my turn to speak, I spoke clearly, my voice steady. "I have been the only one working to support this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulation have caused constant strain." Alex interrupted, pretending to be hurt. "Alara, how can you say these things?" I turned to him, my gaze firm. "Support isn't just words, Alex. It's about actions, and your actions have been selfish and cruel." The judge listened as I presented my evidence. Financial documents, recordings of their verbal abuse, testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed their behavior. The truth was clear. As the evidence piled up, Alex's facade crumbled. Mrs. Whitmore's calm demeanor cracked, revealing her true nature. The courtroom fell silent, tension thick in the air. Then came the bombshell that sealed their fate. My lawyer presented evidence, photographs and documents proving Alex's infidelity and Mrs. Whitmore's affair with a neighbor, Mr. Harwood. The courtroom buzzed as the images were shown, revealing their deceit for all to see. Alex paled, his eyes wide with shock. Mrs. Whitmore's anger twisted her expression, her hands shaking. "You violated our privacy," she shrieked, her voice piercing. I met her gaze calmly. "No, I exposed the truth, a truth you both tried to hide for too long." The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Their credibility crumbled, their lies laid bare. As the hearing ended, the judge's decision was clear. I was granted full custody of our son, and assets were divided fairly. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with nothing but their ruined reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt like a burden had been lifted. The years of manipulation and abuse were finally behind me. I had stood up to them and won. But the best moment was when my son ran into my arms outside, his face beaming with relief. "We did it, Mom," he said happily. "Yes, we did," I replied, hugging him tightly. "We're free now. This is just the beginning for us." As we walked away together, I knew this victory wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who's ever felt small or powerless. It was for truth and fairness. It was the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope and a better future. The aftermath of the court ruling was swift and chaotic. News of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deceit spread quickly, staining their reputations in our small community. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days after the verdict, I focused on rebuilding my life with my son, but I couldn't ignore the satisfaction of knowing they were facing the consequences. One evening, while preparing dinner, I had an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, her eyes filled with tears. "Alara, I heard everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore, did," she said, her voice trembling with pain. I invited her in, offering a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she poured out her heartache. I trusted her as a neighbor, as a friend, and to think she was having an affair with my husband. I listened, offering comfort. It was clear Mrs. Whitmore's actions had caused more damage than she anticipated. The next day, I ran into Alex in town. He looked defeated, a shadow of his former self, his arrogance gone. I paused, facing him. "What's left to say, Alex?" He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much I relied on you, on your strength. His apology, though belated, marked a shift in power. He had lost everything: his pride, his home, his family. And in that loss, he finally acknowledged his mistakes. But it was Mrs. Whitmore who faced the harshest consequences. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only tarnished her reputation, but also led to legal troubles. Mrs. Harwood had filed for divorce and was suing her for alienation of affection. I heard about Mrs. Whitmore's downfall through whispers and rumors from neighbors, painting a picture of a woman brought down by her own actions. She became an outcast, rejected by those she once called friends. One afternoon, I spotted her at the grocery store, her demeanor defeated as she hurried through the aisles. Our paths crossed, and our eyes met briefly. The resentment and defeat in her gaze were clear. "You did this to me," she muttered as she passed by. I watched her go, feeling a mix of pity and vindication. "No, Sylvia, you did this to yourself," I whispered to myself. The tables had turned, and the consequences of their choices were now unavoidable. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the consequences of their years of deceit and manipulation. As I saw them struggle, I understood that the greatest revenge was living well, free from their toxicity. Refocusing on my son and our new life, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about freedom, breaking away from abuse and control. Looking ahead, I knew the best was yet to come. "Why won't you talk to me?" I asked. "I've decided not to talk to people I don't know." "I understand. I'll go away." Living with my husband's parents, they completely ignored me. I thought my mother-in-law might ignore me, but I never expected my father-in-law to treat me the same way. There was a reason why they changed. It was because my sister-in-law, who didn't like me, came back home. Since she returned, our peaceful life together turned upside down. "Don't regret it, okay? You think I'll regret leaving? Think again, meanie." I packed my things and left my in-laws' house. Just 3 days after I left, there was chaos in their home. I met my husband at work. He worked in sales and often came to my office, and I was his main contact. As we spent more time together in meetings, I started to like him. He was caring and kind, tall, and not exactly what you'd call handsome, but he had a charming personality. He was well liked, but for some reason, he said he liked me, and we started dating. When we talked, he told me he grew up in a normal family with parents and a sister. I lost my parents when I was young and grew up in an orphanage. It was a hard thing for me, but when we started dating, I told him about my past. He said, "That sounds tough, but don't worry, I'll always be here for you." Not long after, he asked me to marry him. He always wanted our relationship to lead to marriage and quickly introduced me to his parents. When I told them about growing up in the orphanage, they listened carefully and reassured me it wouldn't affect our marriage. It made me really happy. They even said that my background didn't matter in becoming their daughter-in-law, which made me feel really good. But my sister-in-law, who was very close to her brother, seemed surprised, asking, "You grew up in an orphanage?" My husband had to scold her. Looking back, she probably didn't like me from the start. I didn't think much of it then, just assuming we were still getting to know each other. Before we got married, my husband and I talked about moving in with his parents. We thought about it seriously, but I decided to keep my job. My husband was going to be transferred soon, and although I considered quitting to move with him, my career was going well, and I had just been given more responsibilities at work. We discussed it and agreed he would move alone. After our wedding, I wanted to enjoy being newlyweds for a while. I even thought about visiting my husband during long weekends to have a May vacation together. Moving in with my in-laws right after getting married seemed a bit overwhelming, but my husband probably felt more comfortable living with them. Also, he might have wanted us to live together to ease his mom's worries. Since I lost my parents when I was young, I always wished for a family, so living with them didn't seem entirely bad. Besides, my in-laws had always been nice to me, and I grew to like them. It was tough juggling work and my role as a daughter-in-law, but having a family made me happy and complete. One day, my father-in-law came to me with a surprising request. It was the beginning of some trouble in our seemingly happy living arrangement. It happened when my usually anxious mother-in-law, who often acted bossy towards my father-in-law, was out shopping. I was getting ready to do some cleaning on my day off when my father-in-law asked to talk to me. "What's up?" "Well, I don't want my wife to find out, but I need to take time off from work." "Time off?" I asked, surprised. He explained that he'd been having problems with his boss and coworkers, and his health had gotten so bad that he had no choice but to take a break. My mother-in-law is a nice person, but she's always anxious and a bit overworried. Living with them, I notice how she tends to fret a lot, and my father-in-law walked on eggshells around her to avoid upsetting her. He had always been on the thin side, but lately I realized he seemed to have lost some weight. It would have been nice if my mother-in-law genuinely cared about my father-in-law's weight loss. But when he took a sick day because of a cold before, she said, "A cold? Everyone else at work is climbing the career ladder. You're always taking days off for health reasons. That's why you're not getting promoted." Instead of being concerned, she tended to criticize him. He probably tried his best to keep going, no matter how bad he felt. But his health got worse, and he secretly took time off to go to the hospital. He was struggling both mentally and physically. With him leaving work early, often being late, and calling in sick, there was talk about him needing to take a break from work. But he didn't want to upset my mother-in-law at any cost. If he suggested taking time off, she'd likely get really angry. Also, my father-in-law didn't earn much, and he relied on extra pay from working overtime. Taking time off would mean a significant drop in income. If he told my husband, he might tell my mother-in-law, so he came to me, asking if I could help with the bills. If I mentioned taking a break, she might even leave me, he said. Hearing that hurt, I was grateful to my in-laws who had accepted me warmly, regardless of my past in an orphanage. Wanting to support him, I decided to help him out during this tough time. "Okay, I'll send you money every month. Use it for expenses." "I'm really sorry. I'll try to get better soon and go back to work. Thank you so much." After that, my father-in-law continued to pretend to go to work while I sent money to his bank account for living expenses. My mother-in-law wasn't very thorough with checking her bank statements, so she didn't notice my transfers. He'd act like he was going to work, but instead went to a mental health clinic or went for walks in the peaceful mountains. Over time, he started looking better. I thought he might go back to work soon, but then something unexpected happened. After a fight with her husband, my sister-in-law went back to her parents' home. There's nothing like being back home. I thought I'd lose my mind if I stayed with that stupid husband of mine. I'll be here for a while. Can you make meals for me too? I knew from the start that my sister-in-law didn't like me. At our first family meeting, my husband was upset because she clearly showed her disapproval. During our wedding, she had a sour look the whole time and even told me straight out, "My brother looks great, but you. He could have married someone prettier." She openly judged me for being raised in an institution, saying it was embarrassing that I didn't have parents at the wedding. However, she got married before us and had already moved out, so I thought I wouldn't have to deal with her much. That's why I thought it would be okay to live with them. If she had still been living at home, I wouldn't have even considered moving in, knowing how she would treat me every day. I thought her stay was just temporary because of her marriage problems and expected her to leave in a few days. Even though she was stern with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law had never been harsh towards me. Even if my sister-in-law made mean comments, I believed my mother-in-law would defend me. But I was wrong. One day, when I came back from work, my mother-in-law's behavior seemed strange. "Is something bothering you?" I asked. She seemed distant, not talking to me like usual. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "Did you know you've been talking about me behind my back?" "What? I've never said anything bad about you. You've always been kind to me, and I'm really thankful. Why would I say bad things about you? You've been acting like the perfect daughter-in-law, but you've been talking behind my back." "Whatever," she said, leaving the room. In the hallway, my sister-in-law was smirking. "Looks like you're not in her good books anymore. Did your true colors come out? Being from an orphanage, your background really does matter, huh? It's best not to gossip about people, you know." I haven't said anything bad about her. Oh, the neighbors seem to have heard everything. When I came back home after so long, they told me you've been talking badly about her all the time. What? Who are these neighbors? Well, it's been a while since I got married and moved out, so I kind of forgot their names. I never said any of that. Stop making things up. Oh, how disrespectful. Mom, she's calling me a liar and being mean to me, my sister-in-law said as she walked into my mother-in-law's room. After that, my sister-in-law's mean behavior got worse. She claimed I told her to sleep in the hallway and take the last turn for a bath because she's just a guest. She complained to my mother-in-law about every little thing. Every time, I had to explain I hadn't said or done any of it. But my mother-in-law seemed to believe my sister-in-law and be influenced by her. My sister-in-law stayed longer, making me wonder if she planned to stay forever. With all these worries, I went home feeling sad. I'm back. Before, my mother-in-law would warmly say, "Welcome back," but now it was quiet. "I'll start making dinner," I said, stepping into the living room. I was surprised. Usually, my sister-in-law would rush me to make dinner, but now my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law were eating sushi together. Surprised, my sister-in-law said, "Oh, looks like someone who isn't really family is here. You were planning on having sushi, were you?" My mother-in-law kept eating without looking at me, watching TV. "If you wanted sushi, you should have told me. I came home right after shopping," I said. "Ha! No one said they wanted that," my sister-in-law replied, not even looking at me. "Hey, Mom, Dad, I went out with my friends during the day and got some delicious pudding. Let's eat together," my sister-in-law said, ignoring me. They all started eating the pudding. I was tired from work and didn't have the energy to argue, so I went to my room without eating. The next day, my sister-in-law said she was going out with friends and asked me to drive her to the station. I said no because it was a weekday and I had work. Even if we were going in the same direction, it was a different route, and she wanted to leave around noon. I couldn't do it. "Just take the day off. It's fine. Your cute little sis-in-law just wants a ride. She hasn't had a chance to relax since she got married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer to her now?" she said. "With all due respect, didn't you go out with friends last night after getting a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you came home. I have work. Please take the bus or train." My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were talking quietly, but I was done and left for work. However, that night, the event that made me decide to leave this house happened. I got delayed at work and came home after buying groceries, expecting to face some criticism. It was raining heavily when I left the office, and I got soaked just getting in and out of the car. I wondered what nasty surprise was waiting for me tonight. But when I got home, they were all eating takeout again, just like the day before. No hello, acting like they didn't see me. But I was used to it. I looked out into the courtyard from the hallway and saw something in the middle of the garden. Looking closer, I saw it was my stuff. My designer bag that I bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, all wet. I was shocked, and my sister-in-law said with a smirk, "Having the strangers' things in the house grossed me out, so I threw them out." Flaunting a designer bag like that, how arrogant of you. Neither of my in-laws said anything about her terrible behavior. "Why didn't you stop her? Have I done something to you? Do you really believe her lies about me bad-mouthing you and bullying her? Aren't you upset with her for what she did?" I asked. My mother-in-law avoided my eyes and stayed silent. "Why won't you say anything?" I asked again. "I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who's not family," my mother-in-law replied, not even looking at me. My sister-in-law grinned, waiting for me to respond. "Wait, where's my father-in-law? I've been the one supporting him during his time off. I've been the one handling finances in this house. I did it out of gratitude, but shouldn't he stand up for me now? Surely he'd be on my side." Hoping for his support, I looked at him, but he walked past me without a word and went into his room. That was it for me. "I see. I've had enough." "Oh, are you upset?" "I'm sorry. Honestly, I never liked you from the start. You know, being from an institution and all. Just don't regret leaving," my sister-in-law said. "As if I would. Good riddance," I replied. I packed my things and got ready to leave right away. Only my father-in-law seemed worried because he relied on me financially. But even he didn't try to stop me or speak up for me. I was done with his indifference. Although my husband's work assignment was far away, I just wanted to get out of that house as soon as possible. I quickly got into my car and drove to him. I never talked to my husband about any of this. I doubt my mother-in-law told him about my sister-in-law coming back home. If he knew, he would have reached out to me because he knows I don't get along with her. But my husband never mentioned anything about my sister-in-law in his calls or messages. I never doubted my husband's behavior before, but maybe she's manipulating him, feeding him lies about things. Even now, as I go to him, he might treat me the same way they did. My heart was heavy, feeling suspicious even toward my husband, whom I trust the most. If he's siding with them, maybe divorce is the only option. That's how distressed I felt. When I arrived at his out-of-state apartment, he hadn't returned yet, probably busy since it was the end of the month. As I waited, my husband came in energetically, maybe noticing the lights. What? You're here. You should have told me you were coming. I would have come back sooner. What a pleasant surprise. No, just seeing your face, he said with a big smile. Seeing him happy to see me after all that happened at my in-laws' house, mixed with relief and humiliation, and I couldn't hold back my tears. What's wrong? Did I do something? Seriously, what's going on? He asked, concerned. It seemed my husband had no clue about the treatment I endured at his parents' house. I gathered myself, knowing I needed to explain everything clearly to him. I started recounting everything. How I've been financially helping his father who took medical leave without telling his wife. How his sister returned and was now staying at their parents' house. How she lied about me to his mother, turning her against me. How they treated me like an outsider, ignored me, and even ruined my belongings by leaving them out in the rain. Through tears and pauses, I poured out everything to him. Finally, I made it clear that I couldn't go back to that house ever again. And if he couldn't support me on this, I would want a divorce. My husband apologized for being too focused on work and not checking in on me more often. He regretted his family's behavior towards me. He assured me I didn't have to go back there or even talk to them again. Even if I forgave them someday, he was firm about cutting ties with his parents and sister. He also promised not to provide any more financial aid to his father. That night, I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. The tension I'd been carrying melted away, and I slept peacefully by his side. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never went back. Commuting from my husband's out-of-state place wasn't practical, but I had already talked to my company about working remotely. My job didn't require me to be in the office all the time, and many of my colleagues worked from home too. Although I still had to visit the office a few times a month, some colleagues lived even farther away, so working remotely wasn't a problem. Living with my in-laws and dealing with my sister-in-law's bullying, I hadn't truly experienced married life. But now we could finally live like newlyweds. As I set up my remote workstation, as expected, my sister-in-law contacted me. It turned out that the day after I left their house was my father-in-law's payday. My mother-in-law usually takes out a certain amount and transfers it to their household account, but this time she couldn't. It was only then that she realized I had been helping them financially during my father-in-law's time off. Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses? He asked me not to, saying he didn't want you to know, so I kept it to myself. Anyway, we're running out of money for living expenses and there's no one to cook or do laundry. The place is a mess. As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things and send money quickly. How heartless. I already told you, didn't I? I have no intention of going back to that house or being treated like your maid. Why should I help people who hate me, ruin my things, and treat me like this? Aren't you his wife? Without your help, we can't pay the bills or even shop. That's exactly why I'm saying it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right? I hung up, ignoring my sister-in-law's complaints. She and my mother-in-law kept bothering me with calls and messages, but I ignored all of them. Even after my husband returned from work, they kept calling persistently. When my husband finally answered, he told them firmly, I won't forgive you for how you treated her, and I'm not sending her back to you. I'm not coming back either. I don't see you as my family anymore. Leave my wife alone, or you'll regret it. Considering my sister-in-law adored her brother and my mother-in-law heavily relied on him, they were probably shocked. A few days later, I got a call from my father-in-law. He said living with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law was getting too hard, and he begged me to continue the financial help. I'm grateful they accepted me when I married, despite growing up in an orphanage. But they didn't support me when I needed it, despite all the financial help I provided. I don't owe them anything. Why should I help those who joined others in ignoring me? I'll never assist you again. And with that, I ended the call. Later on, my persistent mother-in-law and sister-in-law shamelessly showed up at my workplace. Since I was already working remotely and had a bad feeling about them, I had informed my company about the situation. Security was alerted right away. They caused a scene, demanding that the company make me send money back home. When my husband heard about it, he said, report them to the police. My colleagues were supportive, saying, I can't believe you had to live with those people. Focus on your remote work with your husband. As for my in-laws, my father-in-law's health declined under the pressure from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and he eventually quit his job. My sister-in-law tried to return to her husband's family, but he refused to take her back. The town quickly learned about her drama at my workplace, causing an uproar at her in-law's place. The real reason for their fight was her affair, and this incident added to their problems, leading to an immediate decision to divorce. Left without a home, my in-laws and sister-in-law moved to a cheap apartment, managing with part-time jobs. As for my husband and me, we're finally enjoying peaceful days, feeling mentally and physically fulfilled. Recently, we found out we're expecting a child, and we couldn't be happier. We're eagerly awaiting the day we meet our baby, cherishing our time together. Hello, my name is Macy. I'm 42 years old and have been married twice. My second marriage has been wonderful, but my first was a disaster. My first husband's name is Bobby, and we were high school sweethearts. I was a cheerleader and he was a jock. We had a lot of fun together, and he made me happy back then. He was my first boyfriend, so I did everything for him because I thought he was the one I'd be with forever. We planned to go to the same university so we could stay together, but in my second year, when I was 19, I got pregnant. My family was upset, and I wasn't thrilled either. My mom kept telling me that life with Bobby wouldn't be easy. My family never liked him but couldn't really explain why. They just had a bad feeling about him. As a teenager, I wanted to prove them wrong and rebel, so I ignored their concerns. Both our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, and I'm still very thankful for that. Bobby and I got married at the courthouse and had our first child. At first, Bobby was a great father, and I felt like I was proving everyone wrong. Then 2 years later, I got pregnant again. By then, I had graduated from college, but I had to quit my job to take care of the kids. Bobby worked 2 jobs to support us. Life was hard. But at that time, I felt that as long as I had Bobby with me, I could handle anything. But a couple of months after our second child was born, Bobby started acting very differently. I tried to talk to him about it, but he wouldn't listen. One day, I took the kids out for a walk and came back to an empty apartment. All of Bobby's things were gone. I panicked, and seeing me panic made the kids cry. I tried calling him several times, but it went straight to voicemail. I remember rushing to my mother's house with the kids crying while I tried not to break down. When my mother opened the door, she looked worried and let us in. "What happened?" she asked. "I think Bobby left me," I said. "What? What do you mean?" "I took the kids for a walk, and when we got back, all his stuff was gone. I can't reach him." "Oh no. Do you know why he might have left?" "I don't know. He'd been acting very differently for a while. But he wouldn't talk to me. And then today, he just left." "Okay, calm down. We'll wait a while, and if he doesn't come back, we'll file for divorce. I'll help you out." But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? "I know. I wish I could find him for you and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not because he'll heal you, but because you have 2 kids to raise." My mom was right. I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep many nights, but eventually, months turned into years, and I slowly got over the pain. My kids obviously asked questions about their father, and when they were old enough, I told them the truth. They were devastated but surprisingly understanding. As a family, we learned to live past the pain. My mom was a huge help and made raising 2 kids much easier than it would have been alone. 13 years after Bobby left, I met my current husband, Fred, at a bar during one of my friend's birthday parties. My mom was watching the kids, so I thought it was a good time to relax and have some fun with my friends. Most of the night, I stayed with my friends, chatting and laughing. Towards the end of the night, Fred approached me. My friends had been encouraging me to meet someone for years, but I was too traumatized by Bobby to try. So when Fred came up to me, my friends stepped back to watch as I talked to him. He started by asking if he could buy me a drink. I wasn't going to turn down a free drink, so I said yes. We waited until we got our drinks to start talking. "So what brings you here?" he asked. "Ah, it's my friend's birthday, and I'm just here to celebrate with her," I replied. "That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them?" he offered. "All of them? There are 7 more people there." "It's all right. I'll make up all the money I spent here the next 2 hours, so no worries." "So you're rich? Ha, I guess you could say that. Of course, I'm not trying to brag or anything. No, it's a great thing to flaunt. Not a lot of people get to do that, and you aren't being a jerk about it. You're buying a bunch of strangers drinks because I told you it was one of their birthdays. What can I say? I have a particular weakness for pretty women. You're so weak you believe everything they say, even lies. Yes, of course. Although did you lie? He asked with a playful smile. No, it is one of their birthdays. But it is concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked, I joked. How about you help me with it? Maybe if I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one woman, Fred replied with a playful smile. It was a confidence boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially because he was so handsome. He looked like he could be on the cover of Vogue. I surprised myself by flirting back with him. I was usually quite introverted, so I don't know if it was the drink or just Fred's charm, but I felt comfortable being flirty. Eventually, my friends came to get me, thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers. From then on, we talked all the time. We started with texts, then moved on to calls whenever we had free time or something interesting to share. We also started meeting up more often. At first, we met in public places, but as time passed, we began hanging out at each other's homes. I was shocked when I saw Fred's house for the first time. It was like a mansion. Fred laughed and told me to get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how comfortable he felt around me, and that just made me love him more. He was also completely okay with me having kids. When I told him about Bobby, he was genuinely upset for me. After that, he went above and beyond to show me how much he cared about me. Fred and Bobby were like night and day, and being with Fred made me realize why so many people didn't want me to be with Bobby. I was glad I got out of that relationship, but I hated how it ended. Fred helped me heal and move on from it, which I was incredibly grateful for. We only dated for a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out our closest friends and family. My kids were thrilled for me and constantly told me how much they loved Fred, which was a huge relief for me. Life from then on was smooth sailing. Fred eased all my worries and even helped with my kids' education, despite me insisting I could handle it. He showed me that he accepted all of us, not just me. He decorated my kids' rooms exactly how they wanted them before we even moved in together. Fred did everything Bobby didn't and more. It was a true turning point for my family, and that's how we grew into what we are today. From then on, Fred and I had a child of our own, but he never treated my kids differently. About a year after our marriage, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another big moment for our family. After that, we became one big family. We did all the things families do, going out to eat, going on vacations, having fun together, you name it. My career was going well, and Fred's company was thriving too. There wasn't a single thing wrong in my life. Before I knew it, 7 years had gone by. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello, I answered. Look who it is. It's Macy. Who is this? Don't you recognize me? I don't think you remember much anyway. It's Bobby here. How are you doing? The voice said. Bobby? What the heck? How did you even get my number? I asked, surprised. I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how you've been. Bobby replied. How has life been treating you since? He asked. Since you left me? Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know that we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word. Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do, Bobby said. You are unbelievable. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you even realize the harm you caused me? Leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. Are you serious right now? Yes, I married a wealthy woman with kids, but I was willing to overlook it because of her money. And it paid off because she got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my dream. So you abandoned your own kids to take care of someone else's. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was stunned by the sheer audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. Part of me wanted to keep talking to him just to find out where he was, so I could give him a piece of my mind. But I was so overwhelmed with emotions that I could barely think straight. After I hung up on him, I felt hurt, not for myself, but for my kids. They grew up without a father who was too busy taking care of his new wife's children. We struggled, but what did he expect? We were just high school graduates when we had our first child. Where would we have gotten the money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgusted. He was the epitome of a sleazebag. He only cared about someone if they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed for long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night, and he was understandably upset but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I received another call from an unknown number, and once again, it was Bobby. I was getting frustrated by his constant calls. He called to brag about his luxurious lifestyle, his new expensive car, and how well his kids were doing at school. I didn't bother being polite this time. I just hung up on him. But that didn't stop him. He kept calling every week after that, telling me about his extravagant purchases. I blocked him with every new number he used, but he kept finding ways to reach me. Eventually, I stopped answering his calls altogether because he was becoming a nuisance. It seemed like he enjoyed bothering me. One day, when I was stressed at work, Bobby called me again. "Oh, hey, Macy," he said. "Can't you just leave me alone?" I snapped. "Oh, come on. I'm just trying to make up for lost time," he replied casually. "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone," I said firmly. "You know you love it, Macy," he replied. "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new good life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living the life that you'll never be able to live?" he taunted. "I can assure you I'm not." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion. I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digidom, one of the finest media companies." "I'm going to hang up," I said, ending the call. I was furious and annoyed after the call, but something Bobby said kept nagging at me. I was too angry to think about it at the moment, so I pushed it aside. When I got back home, I couldn't shake the feeling, and then it hit me. Bobby mentioned working for Digidom, one of the top media companies in our city, and it struck a chord because Fred is the CEO and founder of that company, my husband. I couldn't believe how perfectly the universe had aligned. This meant I finally had a way to teach Bobby a lesson, not just for bothering me but also for abandoning his children. I waited eagerly for Fred to come home, bubbling with excitement to tell him about my day. "Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper?" Fred asked when he saw me. "Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big," I said, unable to contain myself. "Oh, what is it?" he asked, intrigued. Bobby called again. "That sick guy. If I could get my hands on him," Fred started, his anger evident. "That's the thing, he might be closer than we thought," I interrupted. "Huh? What do you mean?" "Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, and guess where he works?" I said, a grin spreading across my face. "You mean to tell me that he works at my company?" Fred exclaimed, disbelief evident in his voice. "Yeah." At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. I explained. "Did you really not remember the company I created?" Fred teased. "Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack," I joked back. I'm kidding. Anyways, do you want me to fire him?" Fred asked. "Absolutely. But before you do, I was wondering if there was any way to humiliate him," I said. "Definitely. Bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him," Fred chuckled. With that, we began planning our revenge. We decided to wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him. We would record his calls to me and play them in front of everyone at a big company event in 2 months, which Bobby would be in charge of. There would be several big names present, and we would tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I answered Bobby's calls calmly, knowing I had the upper hand. I listened to him boast about his wealth and my lack of it, all while recording every conversation. These recordings would come back to haunt him, and I couldn't wait. At the end of the 2 months, the event arrived. Normally, I avoided big crowds, but this time, I wanted to see Bobby's downfall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me a stunning expensive dress for the occasion. I stayed in the car until Fred called me, not wanting Bobby to see me and run. I entered when Fred introduced me during his speech. As I walked on stage, Bobby's face dropped. I smirked as I passed him, watching him sweat. Fred praised me and spoke about our wonderful years together, raising my kids. With every word of praise, Bobby seemed to sweat more. I beamed with pride as the crowd applauded me. Then Fred's speech took a surprising turn. He spoke about how I had been harassed by my ex-husband recently, detailing how he had abandoned me and our kids to start a new family with someone wealthy. But fate had a twist in store because my ex-husband worked for Fred's company. The crowd murmured in shock, speculating about who my ex could be. Fred quieted them down, promising to reveal the identity. He pointed at Bobby, declaring him to be my ex-husband. The crowd buzzed with disbelief. Bobby looked like he might faint, realizing there was no way out. Fred wasn't finished, he had proof. He played the recordings of Bobby's calls to me, exposing his behavior. Bobby froze as the truth unfolded. Fred announced that due to Bobby's actions, he was fired. The crowd cheered as Fred and I left the stage. Bobby was escorted out, and the event continued smoothly. Revenge was served, and it tasted sweeter than anything else. "You're quite bold to call me again after last night," I answered the unknown caller. "You tricked me," the voice on the other end exclaimed. "What do you mean?" I asked innocently. You absolute witch. Don't play dumb with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again, and to my boss no less?" "As I've told you before, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you," I replied calmly. "I know that, but the least you could have done was inform me," he retorted. "So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was? And if my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued." I countered. "Don't twist my words," Bobby protested. "I'm not twisting anything. And if we're talking about decency, Bobby, let's talk about you abandoning your family. If you could do that, I can certainly do this. Enjoy your new life, and I hope you find a new job," I said firmly. "I don't have a family anymore. My wife left me because of yesterday, and she took the kids. And it's all because of you," Bobby lamented. "I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck," I replied, ending the call. It felt empowering to finally stand up to Bobby and know that I had caused him to lose everything. I hope he learns never to mess with me or my family again. Fred and I continue to thrive together, and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is peaceful once again, and I no longer stress about Bobby's calls. I finally feel vindicated and free. Thank you for listening to my story.